All right. We're back. I got a full belly. We got pizza. Time for some Crew-6 coverage. Took a little bit of time for me to get all the pizza. But our mission elapsed time is currently 3 hour, 14 minutes. Crews are in the new Teslas here, and they are preparing to go to the pad. Here, check this out. We got jet black Model X's. Nice, W. All right. Here, let's get the sound patched in here.
And then you can see Administrator Nelson is there. His back's towards us in the suit.
Vic's there.
You can see Victor Glover is the astronaut talking to Steve Bowen, and then just over Victor's right shoulder.
Core on countdown. Administrator Nelson. Ready for crew arrival.
And then Pam Melroy, the Deputy NASA Administrator, and right next to him. So
good eye on all those, Raja, and we also saw some family
doing the commentary.
Comforting
That's cool.
each other.
Yep.
You never know what kind of emotion might come out.
Yeah, it's exciting, exciting and I think surreal, having, knowing the people who are going on the rocket, knowing them, loving them. It's obviously a
Kennedy Space Center idol.
Awesome time. You're so proud that we've gotten to this point, and they've gotten to this point.
So they're coming out. The astronauts have come out of what's called the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, or ONC. So now they're going to the pad. That operations and checkout building is where every U.S. manned mission has gotten ready, so to speak. Everything going back to, I think, what was the first one out of here? The last mission, the last NASA mission that didn't use the ONC building was like Apollo 7. So it wasn't every single one, but it was close. Apollo 7 was the last one that didn't use it. That launched out of Complex 34. Every single mission since then, all of the moon missions, all of the shuttle missions, have all gone from here. All the commercial crew missions have come out of that building, and now they're going to make their way down to Kennedy Parkway to get to drive to the pad here. We have the dash cam. It's great. The truckla, nice rippery. That was a great mod, dude. Well, fast forward. It looks like they're breaking the speed limit. Yeah, Tessa, they have. They actually... Yeah, they have. Also, side note, NASA coverage is in 4K. That's what W was saying, but also...
Right. That's a good point, yeah. So a new set of windshields to brand with new stickers.
That's right. And so let's introduce you now to today's crew, now that they're safely inside the vehicles and headed to the launch pad. Captain Stephen Bowen. He hails from Cohasset, Massachusetts.
Yeah!
And is married with 3 children.
He
holds the title of first U.S. Navy submarine officer to be selected as a mission specialist by NASA. Captain Bowen is also a veteran of NASA space flights, including space shuttle flights on STS-126, 132, and 133. During those missions, he and his crew expanded the living quarters on the International Space Station. They delivered an integrated cargo carrier and a Russian mini research module. He has logged more than 40 days in space, including 47 hours and 18 minutes in 7 spacewalks. And
Stephen Bowen's the only shuttle astronaut to ever fly back-to-back missions. 32 and 33. He flew back-to-back. Pretty cool. Nobody's done that except for him.
He has definitely got some experience, and as you mentioned, a lot of EVA experience. And then Steve also helped with the commercial crew program before Demo 2, actually. So he has some experience with Dragon and with the Boeing Starliner, which hopefully we'll be launching this spring. So he's got some experience on wide-body vehicles. Also did some Soyuz training as a backup flow, and so he's very familiar with the Russian side, the Russian vehicles. So yeah, all around, just a great person to be in that commander role, which is really kind of like the coach of the team, really.
How about that? And a lot of that experience is amazing. Also, I read that he's the only astronaut that flew back-to-back shuttle missions, that 132 and 133, and that was because one of the astronauts had an injury.
Right. Yeah. So and it's a good thing and a bad thing. Right? You're definitely exciting, but also a pretty rushed training flow, and you have to be really on your game to do that.
Sitting next to Stephen is pilot Warren Woody Hoberg. The 37-year-old is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He studied aeronautics and astronautics from MIT before getting a doctorate in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of Cal Berkeley. During grad school, Hoberg worked as an EMT with the Yosemite Search and Rescue. Crew-6 will be Hoberg's first flight since NASA selected him to be an astronaut in 2017. A turtle, which we have another turtle here. He is also a commercial pilot with instrument, single-engine, and multi-engine ratings. As pilot for Crew-6, he will be responsible for spacecraft systems and performance. Aboard the station, he will serve as an Expedition 68 and 69 flight engineer. You know him well as a fellow turtle.
I do, yeah, and proud to keep the turtle tradition in space alive. Obviously, I'm super excited all of Crew-6, but I'm especially excited with Woody going up as a classmate of mine.
Whoa. Well, you know, I got a bachelor's degree, Woody, so...
Magnitude smarter than any of the rest of us in our class, but you would never know it the way he carries himself. He's totally humble, just an amazing human, and can't wait to watch Woody launch to space with Crew-6 today.
And you mentioned he was also teaching at MIT.
He was, yeah. Didn't just go there, actually taught, yeah.
It's amazing. Well, in the role of mission specialist is astronaut Sultan Al-Nayati. He was chosen by the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center of the United Arab Emirates to be part of Expeditions 68-69. The father of five spent most of his life in Al Ain and Abu Dhabi. But in 2020, he traded that in for astronaut training in Houston at NASA's Johnson Space Center. This will be his first trip to space and our first partnership with the UAE.
Yeah, Daryl, and we are super excited about this. So it is. So Sultan and Hazza both trained in Russia for a while, and then came over to the U.S. Unfortunately, they showed up right as the pandemic was starting, so they had to deal with being the first UAE astronauts to train. Oh, by the way, in the midst of COVID, and so the fact that they persevered and through all that challenge, I'm so excited to see Sultan going up there today. And like you said, just starting the beginnings of a new partnership with the UAE, and now in the new class we have 2 additional UAE astronauts training with us, fully integrated with us at Johnson Space Center. So this is the start of a huge relationship.
Integrated.
And many launches to come in that partnership. It's also the first trip to space for the second mission specialist, Roscosmos cosmonaut Andrei Fedyaev. Andrei was selected as a cosmonaut back in 2012. He will be working to monitor the spacecraft during the dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight. And once aboard station, he will be a flight engineer for Expeditions 68 and 69.
And definitely
yeah,
getting some
Andre,
hazard pay, Serge.
Great to see the first-time flyer. So much like our mission, one commander with someone with experience, and then 3 rookies. So very much a testament to the training on both the Roscosmos and JSC side and the NASA side of being able to send that many rookies on one flight. Just the confidence and trust we have in our training teams and our systems.
And oh, by the way, today is Andre's 42nd birthday.
Oh,
so
well,
he's
happy birthday.
He's quite the candle lit for his day.
The best birthday present you could get.
No doubt.
So
and, they must be getting close because the helicopter's coming by the press stand.
So they turned onto the crawlerway right here, or the road that leads to the crawlerway. That building right there is OSB 1, Operations Support Building 1. So where all the engineers for SLS and any NASA in-house programs are. This camera right here is on top of a building called OSB 2, Operations and Support Building 2. It's where more engineers are, and there's a really nice viewing deck right here. And then, of course, in the background there's the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building. Every moon mission, every shuttle mission was assembled here. And even Artemis 1 rolled out right there. In front of the VAB on the right is the Launch Control Center. That's what that little building next to it was. That's, well, Launch Control Center. That's pretty straightforward. I think the ML was sitting on the back left there.
Well, you can see as they're passing there's some folks waving and wishing them good luck
Going by
on the
the
road.
press site now on the right. You can tell it's a press site.
You mentioned the Launch Control Center. That's where Firing Room 4 is, and SpaceX has got their launch team. But just to the right of this caravan here is the turn basin. Can't see the water, but it's a large body of water. That's where we bring in big hardware, like the core stage for SLS. And it's also where several weeks ago, Raja, NASA's
no, it's not part of the
recovery
rescue
team
mission.
was
That
in the
Soyuz
water
went up to the
training
ISS regime,
to return
and it's
NASA
already there.
astronauts after a
Got
flight
up there okay.
back from the moon. Let's take a look now at more in our Artemis update.
Oh, an Artemis Moon Minute. Ooh, Orion.
Right now, NASA
Hello.
scientists and engineers are preparing for Artemis 2. The mission will send 4 astronauts on a trip around the moon in 2024. But before that happens, test
Good
crews are
enough, well, there you
practicing
go.
how to recover astronauts from the Orion spacecraft after splashing down in the Pacific Ocean. This black full-scale replica capsule, named Vader, stands for Vehicle Advanced Demonstrator for Emergency Rescue. It spent the last couple of weeks in the Turn Basin here at the Kennedy Space Center, where it was floated on the water and tested. Crews practiced opening the hatch and installing an inflatable porch, an important piece of equipment to make sure astronauts can be recovered safely. If needed, adjustments will be
please don't,
made,
Marvin.
and then it will be shipped to San Diego, where NASA and the Navy can perform recovery tests in the Pacific Ocean.
I don't know, Shazzy. I'd say they come up with Vader first.
Some key technology there, Raja. You want to be able
Backronym.
to
Exactly,
get out
right?
of that Orion spacecraft and not fall in the water.
Exactly. Yeah. So especially when you're coming back
We
from
backronym
space
Marvin,
and being
though,
deconditioned, your balance is off, your muscles aren't quite work the same. So we spend, it's not quite as easy as getting out of a boat when you're in good shape. So we have to.
Is radiation an issue near the moon? PC Tech, yeah, of course. It's an issue here. It's an issue down on the surface on Earth, man. You go outside to get sunburn. What do you think that is? Now, don't get me wrong. The radiation up there is, to make it simple, there's more radiation up there. There are different types of radiation up there on top of the radiation that we get down here. It's something that you definitely do need to take into account. Not anything insurmountable, though. It's like, I don't know, it's a sea of radiation up there. But can you cross the Atlantic Ocean on a boat and not get wet? Yeah, sure. Of course. Figured out a way around that easily. Now, maybe there was a time where you could cross the ocean and you would get wet all the time. You get splashed in the face. But now you can do it from the luxury of a hotel room. You know what I mean? Sure. It's a problem, and it's something that needs to be solved, but it's not an insurmountable one. By any means. Okay, they're making their way down the crawler way here, moving towards 39A. What's back-to-back shuttle missions? What does that mean? FIM Stephen Bowen landed after completing STS-132, and STS-133 launched like a couple of weeks later. So he got off of the shuttle and then literally got back up on another space shuttle and flew on the next mission. Yep. Here, I'm going to switch us over to the 4K coverage here because more pixels is better. Just got to make sure we're fast forwarded here.
The reason we like working in our office is just the people, and so we're all excited.
Okay, yep. More pixels, right? More Ks. Yeah, that's 80% more K per K. Yeah. Sure, Forlorn, I think. They're almost at 39A. Once they get to the outer perimeter of 39A, there's a gate there, and the gate is called the perimeter gate, and the perimeter fence around 39A is called, well, the blast detonation area perimeter. I don't think I need to say why they call the outer perimeter of 39 the blast detonation area perimeter, but yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the International Space Station Flight Control Room.
You know,
at
you
NASA's
could
Johnson Space Center in Houston,
put two and two
Texas.
together.
Mission Control Houston is essentially the nerve center for operating the International Space Station, working in tandem with our partner agencies and providers around the globe. Together, we've ensured the station is ready to welcome Crew-6.
See, there's the gate
Leading
for the
team
BDA.
inside the room right now is Flight Director Mike Lammers. And about an hour before launch, Flight Director Chris Dobbins will be in the Flight Director's seat. The Flight Director here in Mission Control will lead the NASA SpaceX Go, No-Go polls once we're in integrated operations with Mission Controls here in Houston and at SpaceX in Hawthorne, working together to bring Crew Dragon to its new home
the
in
dash
space.
cam.
When we check back in later, we'll talk a little bit more about
See
what
the rocket
crew
poised on the
on
pad
the
right
International
there.
Space Station has been doing to prepare for Crew-6. But for now, we'll send it back to the team at Kennedy. Daryl.
you, Courtney. And as we look back to the crew with that live camera on the Tesla,
Look at how small those
really
freaking
neat to see
Teslas
that
are compared
shot
to that
driving
damn
up
thing.
seeing
And
a
you know
rocket
what?
dead end.
Falcon 9's a
Yeah,
small rocket. That's a
awesome. We'll
tiny
see what they're
rocket
seeing.
compared to like
And the crew got
SLS.
to go do this usually a day prior to go do a pad tour, but now seeing it with the lights on, with the getting ready to start loading prop here shortly, it's a much different feel. And depending on how
It's
you
Endeavour,
mentioned
fourth
there's a
flight and
flight
life leader
surgeon
for Crew
and,
Dragons. That Dragon
goes
has
out
flown
with them in
3
the vehicle.
times
The other thing
prior.
they're doing is monitoring their playlist.
Compared to Starship. If Starship was here,
everything
it'd
is
be the
nominal,
top of it would
everything's
be up
fine
there
with
somewhere.
food and things like that. Their other job is to curate the playlist for the crew, to try to time it such that their playlist is working out so that what the time they pull up it's finishing. And some good
Astro, you ever hear the story I told when NASA invited me down to walk on SLS's mobile launcher? We went in the mobile launcher, right? Took the elevator all the way up to what's called level 305, right? That's the very top. And we got out of the elevator, and you realize that you're 30 stories up, and you're on metal grates, so you can see the ground. And you're like, and it was cold and windy that day. And we're up there. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is great. And they're all sitting there like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. Nothing. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Thank you for showing me this. Can we go back in the elevator? Like, nah. Elevator's out of order. You're going to have to go down the stairs. And freaking made me walk down the damn stairs. And walk down the damn stairs. 30 stories up, man. You could see the ground. That sucked, but it was funny. I was trying my best to keep my cool. I couldn't do it. I was holding on for dear life, man. So SLS's mobile launcher, the top level is like up here where the lightning rod is on the 39A surface structure. It's like that tall. It sucked. They're like, it's out of order. Sorry. Does the maneuver planner have a way to delay the burn for an orbit? I'm not sure, NGB. I haven't figured out that functionality yet. So, if you notice, the Teslas have crossed and they're kind of parked over there. I get asked this question a lot. What if you have to go to the bathroom? Well, I'll be 100% honest with you. There's a couple of porta potties behind the pad right there, and that's why they cut the camera, because the astronauts are using the restroom if they have to right now. Seriously, pee break. I'm not even kidding. That's what they do. No, it wasn't out of order. No. Oh, no, it wasn't.
Administrator for NASA's Space Operations Mission Directorate. Good evening, Ken.
Hi, Jasmine. It's great to be out here tonight.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here. As we just heard Daryl say, this is the 6th crew rotation flight from NASA and SpaceX to the space station since 2020.
No,
what do you think of that cadence that commercial crew has achieved?
I think it's awesome. We're launching every 6 months. That was the plan going in. It's been our plan for a long time.
Ken Bowser socks.
I think folks may not appreciate how hard it is, but the team has been very successful keeping up that cadence. But I look back, in the early days of space station, we thought 3 months would be a long mission. And now 6 months is just normal. 1 year is longer. When we go to Mars, 2-3 years is going to be normal. And this is all part of getting there.
Right, exactly. Every 6 months, commercial crew is really keeping us busy right now. What can you say about the continuous presence of the United States on the space station?
Well, it's great.
Right there. There's
doing
I'm not.
science,
Look.
every
There's
day
straight
the
up
team
porta
is doing
potties right
some sort of
there.
Science, keeping the space station flying. But it's given us the experience.
They didn't want to show it.
Mars. The longer we're in space, the more we learn, and that prepares
They have
us
depends
for that
on
eventual trip away from Earth and on out into the solar system.
Right, and we're going deeper than we have before. Right now, NASA is no longer the only player. We have a lot of our partners working with us. So what are we doing to support the industry in low Earth orbit?
Well, we've got international partners and we've got commercial partners, and it's great to see how our commercial partners are stepping up and taking on more and more of the things that NASA used to do. And that frees up capacity for NASA to do new things. Right?
Well, Dragon, Idino-san, how does this compare to Max? Falcon 9's maximum payload in expendable form is like 22.5 tons. Dragon is not near that. Dragon's like, I forget off the top of my head. Dang, man. Playing too much Kerbal. There's no such thing. I think it's like 14 tons, 12 to 14. That might be wrong, though. Oh, 13. Well, there you go.
So
hey, DJ.
further out into the solar system.
Right, we're all working together to get further than we have before. Ken, there's a lot going on with Commercial Crew right now.
Yeah,
so
Bling,
what
right,
other
right.
milestones are you guys looking to check off this year, 2023?
Well, we've got another.
What does the launch look like from the ISS? There is footage out there,
Cajun.
Cajun.
We got to keep
Hey,
the
T-Man.
crews moving to the International Space Station.
Salute.
But then we've got the Starliner flight coming up here soon. So we'll have a second provider, which is really exciting. We'll have
pad support
2
teams coming down the crew
commercial
access arm,
vehicles that'll be able
getting
to
ready
take
to
us
receive the
low Earth
astronauts to place
operating
them
out of the United States.
in the
So
capsule here.
we're all eager to see that commercial flight test mission, or that crew flight test mission happen this spring.
I mean, Ark, when
Right,
you
we're all
say
looking
it
forward
like
to that. It's a
that,
great time
dude,
for Commercial
damn.
Crew. Thank you so much, Ken.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Of course. Daryl,
That's right,
back to
Forge,
you.
yeah.
Thank you, Jasmine and Ken. And if you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage of NASA's SpaceX mission known as Crew-6. Good evening and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
The
I'm
mission
Daryl Nail,
formerly known as
along with a
Crew-5.
recent flyer on a SpaceX Dragon, NASA astronaut Rajachari.
Thanks, Daryl.
Good to have you here, Colonel.
Thanks. Yeah, and it was a cool shot there. You got to just see of the crew arm at night. That's a really cool view with it all lit up on the inside. That's their path from
The best part
from
is when the
tar,
astronauts geek out
elevator over into their
about
vehicle
other
and
astronauts
Endeavour.
launching into space.
And it's a
watch
beautiful
watch,
night out,
watch
so
Raja.
we've got a
He's
nice
like,
cool
yep.
breeze.
You see the crew access arm? That's pretty dope.
Temperatures are in the upper 60s, and launch weather is cooperating wonderfully. We have only a 5% chance that there would be a violation of the weather criteria
It's true,
for
Tech. Yeah,
launch.
yeah. I don't
And
blame him. Can
the
you?
corridor, the ascent corridor, we're looking pretty
Salute.
good there too. So 2 areas that need to be good in order to get this rocket off.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't always think
That's
about
right,
that.
Kev.
It's really
Stephen
easy,
Bowen.
especially the folks that come out to watch
From
the launch. It's really
Cohasset,
obvious what the
Massachusetts,
local
man.
weather is like. But like you mentioned, the bigger concern often
See the
is
porta
the
potties?
ascent corridor.
I wasn't
We need to
kidding.
protect,
They're actually taking
in
a
the
dump
event
right
of
now.
having to abort. So the Dragon has the ability to save itself off the rocket. If there's a problem with F9, it can basically fire
we're
off
good.
the top and then land in the water. And so that entire area for the first stage and second stage, we look at the weather, look at the winds and the waves, and figure out if that would be safe to do, and have to just make a decision about that. So today, like you mentioned,
What factors into launch time? Scimitar, the biggest one is literally the position of the ISS. So here, let me show you. Oh, it's not stuffing.space anymore. See, there's the porta potties over there. Hang on. Let me get the command. I'll show you. But you want to see this first.
that you strain your neck, but it looks kind of
I
goofy.
forget what the command for
But
stuffing
it's
dot
hard not
space
to
is.
want to look, because of course you
The
want
biggest one is the position of the
the
ISS,
suit, for
dude.
good reason, is meant to
Stocks, you
restrain
got it?
So it's it's usually trying to create. Yeah, there you go.
That's what's in space. Yep, they're looking up at the Falcon there. Yeah, there you go.
Sit in and lean back. And so that's a rigid area.
Discovery, no one throttle up.
Yeah, they're taking a peek. Don't fall over. Alex.
You wouldn't want the helmet to get so far up that you can't see out of it anymore.
All right, so check this out.
It has to be sewn very tightly.
What's in dot space?
Strain it when it's under full pressure, but when it's not under full pressure, that can be hard.
So-
you can say Nick Hague, ninja number 12 there, will be going up with the astronauts.
There he is.
So check this out. The ISS is in a very tilted orbit like this. It's 51.6 degrees inclined.
I saw
The reason...
online, I don't
Hang
know
on.
if it was a meme.
There we go. Did Roger just say meme? All right, please don't do that again. So the reason why the ISS is in such a tilted orbit like this is because they put it in a place where all the international partners can get to it from all their launch sites. We can get to it from Kennedy. The Europeans can get to it from Kourou. All right. The Russians can get to it from Baikonur or Vostochny. They're 2 launch sites. The Japanese can get at it from Tanegashima, which is down there. That orbit crosses all of those different places. That's the big reason. They found an orbit where everyone can get to it from their home launch sites. So the ISS ends up being in a really tilted orbit, okay? And because the Earth is spinning underneath it, when the ISS does one revolution here, when it comes around again, after it does another rotation, it's going to be over here. Because the Earth's going to move, and it's going to be this way. They have to wait, Scimitar, until the ISS's path crosses Florida. Because if you tried to get to it right now, you'd launch, and even if you launched into a 51.6 degree inclined orbit, meaning, I didn't cover that, meaning it's 51 degrees off of the equator. If you draw an angle where the orbit crosses the equator, it makes 51 degrees. If you tried to launch into a 51 degree orbit here, you'd cross paths and your orbit would go this way. And trying to take a left turn like this when you're going 17,000 miles an hour, no, this isn't Star Wars. We don't do that. You have to wait until the ISS passes over Florida. That's the big one. That's why it's in the middle of the freaking night. Don't get me wrong. I would love it if NASA launched rockets every Friday at 5 p.m. That would be great for me, but orbital mechanics doesn't work like that. Yeah, Kepler. Damn space police. Oh, well. Either way. First guys have gone up the elevator there. Second crew's going up the elevator here. And they should, basically they're going to come out of the elevator. They're going to go around, go up a staircase. And then you have one last phone call that you can make to your family up here. That's what the first set of astronauts is doing. And then it's up the crew access arm into the ship.
At the top getting in, and then we tested at the bottom getting out. But just because the first time we see
thousands
it
of people
is about a week
shizwreck
prior to launch, the last thing they want to do
thousands.
is
It takes thousands to
have
put this thing into space.
fall out of the slide wire box and break a leg a week before.
A lot of stuff needs to go right for this to work correctly.
Andre getting off the elevator, and they'll come upstairs and join. So right now, Woody and Steve are standing at. There's a phone up there.
When is launch? We're
launch
inside
pad.
of 3 hours.
These are the two astronauts in the
Mission
upper right
control
correct.
is
So they're
at 2
more
hour
than
49
likely
minutes. We
calling,
got a little bit of
Panther
time,
One
but it's
just to,
cool watching them get into
kinda
the
give
spacecraft and
the
stuff.
last, I love you
That's
before you have to do it over the radio.
that's why
radio.
I sit here and cover this stuff. It's so
I called my
freaking cool,
wife.
dude.
I
People
put
launching
a
into space,
key,
man.
light
This doesn't happen
on
every
to
day.
Make sure that the person you're going to call has
Here we
the
go.
phone number up there, which is for obvious reason guarded. But the last thing I want my wife to do is not answer the phone because she thought it was a spam call.
Oh, right.
Oh, 74.
Get that
Don't
number
do
in.
that
exactly.
to me.
Looks like we've got a little backup in the queue here. So the mission specialist will stand by.
So they're making a phone call. So little bit on the crew access tower. If you notice in the lines, the arrows that are pointing in different directions, those arrows are representing the emergency exit routes. There are slide wire baskets over here, basically a giant zip line. And if something goes wrong and the astronauts need to get out and they need to get out quick, those lines lead to the slide wire baskets over there. You could just barely see them. They're behind this thing right here. And you could go into that, you hit a button, and it'll zip you away from the pad to the edge of the blast detonation area. The slide wire baskets, those are reused from the shuttle program, which is actually pretty cool. But yeah, if you're wondering why the lines are on the ground there, it's in case there's a lot of smoke, you can be close to the ground and you can see where to go to get off the fixed service structure. Because in the event of fire, you're not taking the elevator. That's not going to end well.
Tonight, though, we count down to 1:45 a.m. and
Pete, you take your iPad with Clash of Clans. I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. Crew 1, we definitely saw Mike Hopkins playing Fruit Ninja on his iPad before they were going to launch. I'm dead serious. He was playing Fruit Ninja.
courtesy of our crew.
There's Woody.
And here comes Woody and Steve down the crew access arm.
Hell
ready to
yeah.
Get inside the Dragon spacecraft.
Yeah, Tech,
So
right?
you'll see there's a NASA meatball there with the signatures of all the previous Crew Dragons.
Your signature's there.
It is. Yep, and then the SpaceX for the private
Where's
mission.
Buzz?
So they basically
Punching moon
kind of, and
deniers.
you'll see. I think they're about to hand him a
Right?
Sharpie.
That's the
are.
buzz we're talking about.
This is on the
No.
crew checklist.
Now you got to decide if you want to take your hands out of the gloves or keep them in the gloves. So it's different
There's
people
a
prefer
zipper
different things. You
on the
can,
side
you
of
can
the
take your
spacesuit?
hands in and out without
Yeah, see?
breaking the validity of the leak check. But if you undo any of the other zippers,
That looks so
you
strange.
do have to redo the leak check, which you're going to do anyways in the vehicle. But taking your hands in and out can just be a little more comfortable, a little more cooling.
That
You'll
looks
see.
like what Woody's doing.
Exactly.
He's got
And
gloves.
you can see he's got comfort gloves on there, though, which are basically just to help with your to absorb some of the sweat and perspiration.
You wanna
Yeah,
make
Scotch,
sure you
right?
sign this.
Superman, give
you know,
this up to
nice and
Blinga.
legible.
Yeah. There's always no shortage of dragonflies as well out here in Florida, and so that's always one of the
Steve
other
have a
good
problem
luck
with his
omens
suit?
that the closeout crew will talk about is having seen a
Oh,
dragonfly
nope, he took
come
his
around near
patch.
the White Room.
Oh, really?
That's a tradition going back to the shuttle days. So Steve's old school. He's flown 3 shuttle missions. He's old school. You see, he took his patch. That's an old tradition. The last people that you talk to on the ground, you take their patch. All right? You take the patch and you bring it with you. So you could keep it in your head, keep everything into perspective, how many people it took to get you to this position. That's why they do it. Astronauts will take the patch to the last person that they speak to. It's cool, man. See, he has his patch right there. And then Steve and Woody all signed the meatball. Over here on the left-hand side of the crew access arm, or the right-hand side of your screen, see there's a NASA logo and there's a SpaceX logo. On the left is every single NASA astronaut that's flown on a Dragon. And over here is every single commercial SpaceX astronaut that's flown on Dragon. So over here is Axiom 1, Inspiration 4. And soon the AX2 crew is going to sign over there. But they're going to sign on the meatball, and then they're going to go into the spaceship. It's a 6-month stay. That's right. And it's to respect those people, too. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Standing by, getting ready to.
I love the worm logo. The lit worm logo. All right, here we go.
What has to know how to do is dial internationally on that phone, especially with Sultan and Andre. Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's a government phone. It's not always easy.
That's an awesome picture for us. Yeah.
Core on countdown.
And there was a dry dress
Stephen Bowen began ingress here.
Remain on schedule.
To hear the call from the core that they're on schedule. So
now, if you're wondering why everybody here has numbers, these guys are all masked up and they're all wearing clean room suits because you don't want any contamination inside of the craft. You don't want to bring any weird like hair or whatever in the craft. It's called foreign object debris, FOD for short. All these guys are all masked up and baklavaed up so they don't get any foreign object debris inside of the capsule. You don't want to bring that stuff up into space. It can get clogged in the filtration systems in the spacecraft. That's bad. You don't want that to happen. You want to limit it as much as you possibly can. I mean, it'll clog up filters. It'll do a bunch of bad stuff. But you don't want to take the risk. That's taking a chance. You know what I mean? It's taking a chance so you don't need to, right? So all these guys are all masked up. So the numbers on their back is so you can tell who the heck is who because you can't see anybody. You can't tell who's who. Except obviously the astronauts, right? In the shuttle program, they wore white. Yes, Jolt. Mm-hmm. Who does number 2 work for? You want to play Portal, Flykin? Nice.
They're going to see an enunciation of an alert, but there's nothing required. So
over here, his crew egress systems. Those are respirators and stuff in case of an emergency.
Sultan was pretty pumped as he came down the crew access arm.
He was moving,
pumping his fists, waving and. Gave his flag on his shoulder a tap.
So, very cool, very exciting.
I heard Kindar tones.
He's going to go with the gloves. Going to sign it.
Just don't get any Sharpie on the outside.
In Dragon SpaceX, we were actually able to complete that test without triggering the onboard alert, so you can ignore the previous call.
SpaceX Dragon traffic, thanks for the heads up.
What's the green light for? It's a status indicator, Tomas? If I had to guess.
So what the ninjas are doing there is making sure that the suit, that white outer layer.
SpaceX Dragon, seat 3, contract.
Those suits, can they survive hard exposure to space?
Woody, how me?
Oh, hold on.
I have you the same. Good morning, Arthur.
Hang on.
Good morning, and for your awareness, as promised, I am wearing the shirt.
I love it. That makes us so happy.
So Arthur, one of the cores at SpaceX, and usually the crews have pretty good relationships with all the cores and the MDs because we've worked with them so much.
Mission director and cores crew
Arthur has either lost some kind of bet or made some kind of bet to have to wear some kind of shirt. Maybe when we see MCCX later, he will.
So see, he took his patch. So Fim, can they survive hard exposure to space? No. They can, but not for long. These suits are the suits that they have in case of cabin depress. Like if you're flying on an airplane, the mask that pops down. Yeah, that's what those are for. In space, if the pressure goes, it's going to go pretty quick. You want those masks down whenever you're doing anything that has to do with basically anything that's not the spaceship just kind of floating around. So they'll wear the suits during ascent, obviously during descent. They'll wear it during docking operations. So when they go to dock, they'll have the suits on. Just in case, dude. Once again, spaceflight is all about mitigating risk. You don't take the chance if you don't have to. All right? There's no Why would you even take the chance? It's not worth it. So just wear a suit. It's not a big deal. But yeah, they can't last in space like exposed like straight to the vacuum for long periods of time. These things have no life support. So if you look on the left thigh of the suits, there's a little hose that comes out. And that hose basically plugs into Dragon's life support systems. That is just a pressurized suit, and it has HVAC plugged into its plugged in on the thigh, I think. It's on the left thigh. I'm not sure. You'll see it. There's a hose coming out the side. So they can plug into the spacecraft's oxygen, right? With the suit. And that's how you breathe. So they don't have life support on them. They're tapping into the life support from the capsule. Hey, N9, thanks for the raid. Pretty good anti-fog on those masks, I'd assume. Oh, Bob, I hope so. What's the ETA for docking? I'm not sure what the ETA for docking on this one is. We are at T-minus 2 hour 39. All 4 crew is ingressed into the Dragon. What a shot. Oh, that's cool.
Well, wearing that suit, and again with the kind of like limited head mobility,
it's
easy to forget
that's
that you gotta.
Why are they entering so early? Well, they're entering so early because SpaceX does things a little bit differently than anybody else. One, first and foremost, SpaceX, NASA, doesn't matter. Take your time. Take your time. Don't go fast with this. If you watch my docking, I was doing docking in KSP today between my lander and my pod, right? If you watch that, it pays to go slow. Just be methodical. Don't take your time. Now, the particular reason why the crew is in here early is because they have to fuel up Falcon. Falcon doesn't have any fuel in it. SpaceX, in order to maximize the performance of Falcon 9, has to load the fuel really, really quickly because they're using semi-cryogenic propellants. What does that mean? So you have to bring fuel and oxidizer with you to go up into space. The oxidizer that they're using is super chilled liquid oxygen. So there's no oxygen up there. You got to bring the oxygen with you. They bring it in liquid form. SpaceX brings it in like liquid slushy form because if the colder that LOX is, right, the more LOX you can get inside of the tank because it contracts when it's cold, right? So if you can get more LOX in there, you can get more performance out of the vehicle. So they have to load quick because trying to keep oxygen a liquid down here on the surface is kind of a pain in the butt. So you'll see it when Falcon 9 goes to start getting fueled, there will be all this ice coming off the side of the booster. So they have to fuel fast. So SpaceX loads the crew first. So like the space shuttle, for instance, they would start fueling like 8 or 9 hours before they go. And then one of the last things that they did was put the crew in. Don't lick it. I wouldn't do that. Fun fact, the reason why they wear the suits is because the Russians lost an entire Soyuz crew on re-entry when they didn't require the suits to be worn. Soyuz 11, yep. Patsiev, Dostoevsky, and I forget the name of the last one. Yeah, it's not directly from Soyuz 11, but it is, that definitely was a teacher, that's for sure. Do they load and go on crew missions? Yep. The Falcon is not fueled yet. In fact, you'll see them start going through the steps here. Section 6 of the Launch Operations Manual is LES arming and then launch operations here. Right now, they're in crew ingress, which I believe is step 2. The next step here that they need to do is comm checks. They're going to, and they already started doing it, but they have to test the 3 avenues of communication. Get them through the ground loop, which is through the launch pad for Dragon, get them through shortband and through NASA's tracking data relay satellites. They're going to do 3 different comm checks with the Crew-6 crew here once they're all seated and ready to go. Yeah, Forge, I did. It's pretty awesome. With proven flight data, RJ, is the way they got them to go along with it. Out on the space station to do an EVA FIM, they're using NASA's Extravehicular Mobility Unit, or EMU for short. That's the one with the space flight backpack. That's the one you can go outside by yourself, no problem. Can't they fuel at the same time that the crew go inboard? Sure, like that's a good question, dude. They could, but remember what I said. This is first and foremost what I was telling Waze, that this is all about mitigating risk. That is the biggest thing. If you don't have to, try to maximize your odds of success, basically, right? Now, with that being said, load and go is one of the most dangerous things that you can do. Fueling rockets is dangerous. Why is fueling rockets dangerous? Well, you're moving a lot of stuff that really likes to explode into something that also really likes to explode. And if there's people on top, you don't want to do that when there's a bunch of people just kind of hanging around on the pad. Not a good idea. You're increasing your odds of failure there, right? So, I know what the next question coming is. I hopefully anticipated it. So, okay, so why do they do that when the crew is on top? Well, they have to arm the launch escape system during fueling operations as a precaution. In case something does go wrong, Dragon will eject itself off of the pad away from the rocket in case something goes wrong. I wouldn't, like in real life, dude, I wouldn't mind being like standing next to a fully fueled rocket. A fully fueled rocket's pretty dang safe. An empty rocket is obviously pretty safe too. I wouldn't want to be near a rocket that's being fueled. Bad idea. That's a bad idea because you're changing a lot of things all at once, not to mention the things that you're moving around like to blow up. You don't want to do that. That's not smart. Don't do that. What is the zero-G plushie? They usually announce it after they're up in space, dude. The beeps are Kindar tones, Iglulik. They're called Kindar tones. It basically lets you know that somebody keyed a mic. They did not use that option, Katra. This has 4 seats on it. The Russians launched a Soyuz, and Soyuz got up to the space station yesterday. How soon do you think we'll see an astronaut that's already flown on a Dragon fly one again? Not sure, Mock. I don't know. Yeah, and you see how they were called the Red Team, Bandit, and those guys have balls of steel. SLS, that's a lot of explodey bits right next to you. Sure, Tessa. Can we get a crew name read off? They'll go over it again, Flykin. Are you streaming your regular schedule this week, or are you taking some time off? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, need backup. Does the space around the rocket smell like Jet A? RP-1 smells like Jet A. RP-1 is... It's basically a super refined version of Jet A Solute. It's very similar. They're cousins in the hydrocarbon family. Dude, I want it, man. The fire got lit with KSP2. I want to play it. I want to play the frick out of that game. Yeah, Maxim, it's going to take some time. They got to fuel the rocket. That's why they got to arm the launch escape system so they can fuel the rocket. The reason why they need the launch escape system armed is so they can eject the crew away if something goes wrong during fueling. Why are they putting people in before they're fueling? Because SpaceX needs to load fuel fast so they get more power out of the rocket. If you fuel quicker, you can get more performance out of the vehicle. Because the propellants that they're using are super freaking cold. They're super cold. And it's not cold in Florida. That's the short answer. What does Jet A smell like? Diesel fuel? Diesel fuel, Jet A, JP5, RP1, they are all part of the same kind of family of hydrocarbons. It's sparkling diesel. I'm calling it that from now on, Scotsman. That's good, man. How many G's will the launch escape system pull? 8? 8? Gore-Tex literally crack and drive for like probably 10 to 15 seconds. I mean, you'll feel it. You'll feel it the next day, but you're not dead, you know. How do they get around petroleum and LOX mixing while fueling? Well, they keep the petroleum on one side of they fuel the petroleum on one side of the rocket and they fuel the LOX on the other side. And Airborne, that right there is the reason why nobody's near the rocket except for the people on top when they go to fuel the damn thing. A diesel would run on RP1. Sure, Tessa. Of course it would. Diesels can run on anything, dude. You could put Chanel number 5 in there. It'll run off that. Sure, no problem. Oil, it'll run off that. Yeah, put anything in a diesel. You can put corn juice corn juice in there. It'll run off that, no problem. Yeah, anything that's flammable, you throw in a diesel, it's good to go. You could put tequila in a diesel, it'll run. Sure, why not? It's probably not good for you. You might get some detonation with tequila, but yeah, it'll be right. It'll be all right. Can an Abrams run on corn juice? Well, Abrams, the Abrams tank has a gas turbine in it. It is a turbine engine. Anything that's flammable can go in that. Yeah, anything, like literally anything. Gunpowder? I don't know how you're gonna feed solid propellant into a liquid-fueled engine. Me not, but probably not gunpowder, dude. A common rail diesel does not like to run on anything. Yeah, I'm sure I've seen diesels run on all kinds of stupid things. Turbines will really run on anything. Turbines don't care. Some stuff might gum up a diesel, but it'll run. Shine? You could run a turbine on Shine. Here we go.
It's giving us some waves. There's a procedure that they're running called, so SpaceX procedures are a number with a dot and something. So this would be 4.100, and the procedures are on their displays.
Pete's like, hey, bye.
And so usually they'll have one display that's showing the timeline, and then another display with this procedure.
Not with the
so
RP1
they just talked about the fact
airborne,
they're ready to do comm checks. Yeah. And so there's going to be a series of checks here. We talked earlier, Daryl, about how there's different relays. One's to the umbilical, which is the physical connection between the Dragon, the launch pad, and the ground. There's a TDRS connection.
Where are you watching this?
Satellite connection.
This is on NASA TV. I can send the link if you don't want to hear me blabbering over it, Carson. Here, I put the link in chat. Best part, we're in 4K, baby. Oh, yeah.
SpaceX Commander, comm check.
Here we go.
Commander, have you loud and clear?
And that's Arthur the core you heard talking
For the most part, Stoofy, yeah.
And Commander, you loud and clear as well.
That's the crew operation.
SpaceX pilot, we had you loud and clear.
Resource engineer.
Pilot, loud and clear.
It is BXD. Turbines.
SpaceX MS-1, comm check.
Not very fuel efficient.
MS-1, loud and clear.
SpaceX, this is MS-2. I'll be read me.
MS-2, loud and clear.
Mission Specialist 1, Mission Specialist 2.
Report when ready for seat rotation.
Watch this, dudes. Beam me up, Scotty.
So there you heard the call for the seat rotation. So we're seeing the astronauts and the cosmonaut.
Not fuel efficient, but it runs off everything.
Inside the spacecraft before that camera has to pull out.
And SpaceX Dragon crew is ready for seat rotation.
And those seats articulate up so they can look at that display.
How long's the trip? It really depends on the position of the ISS craft. It can be up to 48 hours or up to 6. Or down to 6.
So SpaceX
6 hours or 48.
Report when initiating.
All right, here we go. Watch the seats.
Yeah, so it's like this to make it easier to get...
Initiating seat rotation.
Here we go.
To start to make it easier to get in and out for both the people and the cargo, but then you rotate the seats for launch and landing so the G-forces are more through your chest and not in like a more odd... you don't want to be like in a...
pulling it down from your
weird,
head.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the blood
it makes
down
it
your feet.
exactly. So this makes it much
spinal.
more easy to sustain the G's when it's pushing through your chest, kind of like someone sitting on your chest, as opposed to pulling it down towards your feet. And you can see the.
Oh, that's freaking cool! Come on now. Come on now.
Articulating, I should say, up into that flight position, and they'll be able to look at their screen and monitor.
Yeah, Log. They got to fuel up the rocket before they go.
Prepared for flight along with the Falcon 9.
Oh, that's so cool, dude.
There.
Yep. So you can see it's not just people going up to the space station, a whole bunch of stuff getting hauled up there as well.
That's right.
Dragon SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
SpaceX Dragon copies.
Okay, they're in the launch position. Yeah, if I can. They can 404, but they.
Check, so we're all the way.
Actually, dude, one of the last things that they did before they got into the spaceship was use the head. I'm serious. Not the one on Dragon. There is a toilet. The toilet's actually over there. It's up above. Believe it or not, it's above the door. Space is at a premium in the capsule. What do you want? There's a privacy curtain. Yes. How does the toilet work? Vacuum cleaner. I don't need to talk about it anymore. No, they already went. It was like the last thing that they do before they get in the spacecraft. I'm not kidding. The toilet is based off of the space shuttles. It's a vacuum cleaner. How else are you going to do that? What, chat? You don't know how to use the 3 seashells? Come on.
Which is why they just did that.
Rocket is not fueled up yet, Zilorf. No. Mm-mm. Is there a height restriction to be an astronaut? Yeah, I think it's like 6'2", 6'3", but they'll make accommodations if you're smart.
You'll see the suit inflate a bit. You'll probably see the helmet move up again, move up, and that's why I mentioned before why it has to be tight so that they can still see out of it.
Got the visors closed as well.
Yep. They're tightening the straps down, and then they're going to be looking at, so Stephen, Woody, and actually all of them, but there's displays right in front of them. They're going to show them the suit delta pressure,
hey,
and
they're
making
What's up,
sure that the suit can hold the pressure, that there's no leaks.
Andre's got his hands in position now, that you mentioned.
Of course, up. Dominican.
And you'll see after this leak check, you'll see they will never touch their zippers again. The only thing they'll do is open and close the visors, but after this leak check, that's the last time they'll mess with any zippers.
Once you know they're good to go, leave them alone.
Exactly, yep.
All right, SpaceX Dragon pair is complete. We are ready for leak checks.
Okay, so if you look right here, you can see it underneath Woody, the pilot's left thigh. See this? You see that thing right there?
24 minutes until liftoff.
There's a environmental control and life support system tube coming out of the bottom of the back of his thigh right there. What that is well, environmental control and life support. You got to plug in the Dragon's oxygen. They plug in. And now what they're going to do is they're going to inflate the suits. Watch, you'll see them inflate a little bit, and they're going to make sure that the suits have no leaks. And they're going to use Dragon to pump the suits up. They're going to use Dragon to pump you up.
You were the commander.
Nah, Croft, that doesn't sound like a good time.
What's your role in this moment?
So, my analogy that I like to use is kind of like a professional coach of a team where you're not really, if you're an NBA coach or an NFL or Major League Baseball coach, you're not teaching people how to play. You're just trying to get them to work together in the most efficient way.
They use nitrox,
That's the
alien.
same thing. Everyone in our office is highly trained. I don't need to tell anyone how to do their job, but more it's a matter of like, okay, for this emergency,
suits inflating.
Steve might say, okay, in the case of a depress, then Woody, you're doing this, Sultan, you're doing this, Andre, you're doing that, and the important thing is iterating on that. So you have a sim, you see how that goes, and even if it went great, maybe change it the next time to see like, oh, that either went better or it validates that we have the right approach. So it's kind of working with the training team to figure out the best
turn into the
CRM,
Michelin Man
resource management. What is the optimum way to use the crew skills in a variety of environments, and sometimes maybe having the same approach, so having like a buddy system maybe works, but maybe there's a balance. Like you want to keep it simple, or maybe
you have to do this.
Reason to do something like, for example.
No, they're going to the ISS. Dunfield.
Like my Russian wasn't really great, right? So, so if we had a Russian crew member, Tom probably would have sat next to that person. We would have figured that out, or figured out certain emergencies. So. Woody's a lot smarter than me, and Steve's been speaking Russian a lot longer, so I'm sure they didn't have that. I'm sure they didn't have that concern, but things like that. So it's
how they keep them from fogging up. Good environmental control systems.
It does look like they're pressure. Yeah, you can see that's why Woody's hands look like a mummy there, just sticking out. Yeah. And you can see their knees have gotten much puffier. You can see Andre's head, like the helmet now is. Here, you can still see his nose.
Let's back it up and see if we
eyes,
can see a difference.
It's risen up. You can see how it's extended.
I'm gonna see if we can just go backwards a little bit. Ready? Watch for the change. Did you see that? Look. Watch the knees. Oh wow, they really inflated those things. Holy crap. Yeah, they weren't kidding. They're really freaking balloons right there. Holy crap. Did you see that? Here, let me do it one more time. Ready? Watch the difference. Boop. Dude. Whoa. That's nuts. Yep, we can see that those suits up. There we go. They depressed them. You see it? Look, they depressed the suits. And they fell back into their chairs. That's cool. All right.
To section 4 for site hatch closure and report when ready.
Okay, they're in section 4. What this guy's doing right there is he's using basically an alcohol wipe to clean the mating seal on the hatch. The hatch is a pneumatically sealed hatch, basically there's a vacuum seal inside of this, and you have to make sure that the vacuum seal seats correctly in between the capsule and the hatch. They're inspecting the seal right there to make sure that the seal's good to go. And then what they're going to do is they're going to get a hand pump, quite literally a hand pump. They're going to plug in a pneumatic line here, and then they're going to pull vacuum out. They're going to pull pressure out of the seal to get it to vacuum seal up against the two flanges. Why all black? Because SpaceX thinks they look cool, and they kind of look like ninjas, Mike. In the past, the pad support crew has worn white suits.
Yeah, that's on dry dress, because as you mentioned, it's a clean room now, yes. So seeing a dragonfly now would be bad, because that means there's bugs.
That could be fun.
Yeah, that means there's bugs inside the, so
I'm not sure, KJ.
Made that more clear before, yes. During dress rehearsal, yes. Let's see, other things, let me think about that. I think slapping, so Steve probably had an STS or shuttle patch on the outside of the thing, so slapping your patch on the way into the AQF facility is like that's a thing,
luck.
right?
Okay.
Yep.
I saw Sultan.
That guy has a checklist right there.
That's I'm trying to think of other ones.
Either that or he's playing Galaga.
Oh, on the way out of crew quarters, typically the chief of the astronaut office, there'll be some kind
of
Pete?
I don't know.
Card game, some
Here, hang on, let me check.
Changes from crew to crew, but there's something they'll do with the chief of the astronaut office right before they leave the suit room. And honestly, I think no one remembers if you're supposed to win or lose. I think it depends.
No, I think you played it.
I did. Well, yes. Well, there's this debate like, are you supposed
see.
to? So one argument is you're supposed to lose because then you've gotten rid of all your bad
He's reading
luck.
what next to do for a week.
The other one is you're supposed to win because then you feel good as the crew. So I don't know what the right answer is. We actually played a little mini game of shuffleboard. We kind of
shuffleboard
based on our we had a little tradition.
Yes, sorry about
of
that.
Playing little mini shuffle.
Why are the ninjas numbered? Man, it's so you can tell who's who, because it's really hard to tell who's who without a big number on your back. So, okay, jokes aside, that guy has the checklists. And if you notice, there are guys walking in, some of these pad ninjas are walking around with iPads and stuff. And you notice after they do everything to the spacecraft, so like if you go and tighten a bolt on the spacecraft, you take a picture. The reason why is so in case something goes weird with the mission, you can go back and say, oh, it wasn't this. We tightened this correctly, and here's your photo evidence of it. So some of these guys are going to move around with iPads here, and they're going to literally take pictures of every step that they do here. They still have the inspection lights, and they're cleaning the seal on the hatch.
Exactly.
Dragon SpaceX closeout team is taking final steps in preparation to close the
It's not
side
documented.
hatch.
It didn't
Stand by for
happen.
transition
Bingo.
to
That's a
pad
huge
hatch
thing
closed.
to you do.
Ensure
Everyone in
all
the
items
aerospace
remain
industry
secure
does that.
from now through launch.
What if the astronauts have an itch?
SpaceX Dragon stuff.
Hopefully you can just kind of move around.
Hatch close.
Yep, and so you heard that call from the core. So there's nothing the crew's actually doing. In
Emergency.
These are the basically. You can see they have those more powerful lights.
First aid kits.
They're monitoring. The key thing he told him was not. So basically, up to
he
this
was like,
point,
I'll
moving things out of satchels, maybe moving their iPads around. But from this point out, you don't want to do that because if something falls off your leg, you lose a pen. Now you've got a piece of FOD in the capsule. So basically, they're no longer going to mess with anything other than displays and their armrests. Nothing, no taking pencils out or doing like that. So they are probably doing the last bit of configuration.
No, they do.
Like
they have something that you
cards
can
that they
do
had
this.
on their legs, like making sure those are velcroed on, that they have access to the pen or pencil they want to be able to write down notes with, and getting all that done.
So as we watch this, we're going to split the screen so we can maintain our visual of the closeout crew.
That's right, Herb Derb.
Inspecting the hatch before they close it. But we also want to look back to a little history and a recent honor that happened for a couple of our astronauts. Today, we are launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil. But it all began with two trailblazers of the commercial crew program who recently received the highest civilian honor.
Jim Moment, Common Jim W.
It is my great honor to award you both the Congressional Space Medal of Honor.
In January, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke to a packed room at the White House about the dedication of NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken.
Bob and Doug
represent
the best of our nation. There's no question about it.
NASA selected both men to be astronauts for the space shuttle program in 2000. But when the shuttle program ended 11 years later, Doug and Bob's work did not. NASA collaborated with the private sector to build the next generation of spacecraft.
Every part of the capsule, from flight controls and emergency procedures to computer displays and cockpit layout,
they helped design
all of
it.
that shaped by Bob and Doug's decades of know-how.
And in May of 2020, the SpaceX Crew-Dragon was ready to soar.
Bob and Doug returned to the Kennedy Space Center. They suited up, they waved to their families, and they rode an elevator up nearly 20 stories. They strapped in to their seats and waited as the tanks beneath them filled with tens of thousands of gallons of fuel. And then
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
Demo 2 was the first crewed flight for NASA's commercial crew program.
That was a really good day.
A new era of human spaceflight. And now, the names Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken have been added to an elite list. Prior to the ceremony, the Congressional Space Medal of Honor had only been given to 28 people, astronauts like Neil Armstrong, and John Glenn.
We're following in their footsteps, and so it's just an incredible honor.
That's cool.
It was humbling to be a part of the mission. We got to be the smiling faces on the pointy end of a rocket ship.
I know, Biff. That doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Missions like Crew-6 are happening today.
Bob and Doug together have written the first page of a new chapter in the history of American space flight.
Did you see the silencers on the back of that Gulfstream?
Their careers to space flight. What an honor, Raja.
All right,
yeah, it was,
taking pictures
it
of the
was
seal.
so cool. I got to actually the honor to work with them as we approached Demo 2, and the Vice President couldn't have said it better. They have set the stage for a whole new era of space flight, and we are seeing it. That we, whether it's the Dragon, the Starliner, they were in on the ground floor doing all that. And exactly like she said, their influence is all over this vehicle, and their the way they worked with SpaceX to help design it. We are all benefiting that. We continue to benefit from it today, and so actually more than a few times we trade, like why is it like this?
So Vetty, they have numbers, because how the heck are you going to tell who's who? it's like playing a sport. You don't know who's who. You did read the number on the back. You know what I'm saying? It's really hard to tell who is who. So every number corresponds to a job and also to a person, so you know who to talk to. Why are the ground crew wearing balaclavas? Excuse me. Sorry, it's getting late. Adversity, they're wearing them to prevent foreign object debris from entering the capsule. This is what's called a clean room environment. Basically, there's a seal up against it, and there's positive pressure being pumped in here to keep it a nice sterile environment, because you don't want like skin flakes and stuff and hair and whatever, or any dust or whatever getting inside of the capsule. That's not good for it. You want to limit it as much as you can, especially on the seals for the hatch. You don't want that to leak. And even a small thing, that thing is so precision engineered, even a small little bit could cause a leak. You don't want that. that would be not good. So they're all basically masked and suited up to prevent foreign object debris.
Space station as they await Dragon's arrival. The crew aboard the station is currently in a sleep period, and they are scheduled to wake up at midnight Central Time. They have completed a number of tasks to prepare the station for Crew-6, like setting up tools to monitor Dragon's arrival and prepping the sleep stations for new residents.
So the NASA logo has a bunch of signatures from every NASA astronaut that's flown on Dragon. The X logo has has all these signatures on it for every SpaceX commercial astronaut that's flown. So the AX-1 crew is on there. Inspiration 4 is on there. What else? Should be more than that. Where do I buy the jacket? NASA doesn't sell them, Hoffman. It sucks. Those jackets are awesome, right? There you go, Fit. That's cool.
Kennedy here. Joining us
those
now
jackets
is
are
NASA
fly, man. I like
Recovery
those.
Director Brian Barry. Thanks for being here.
course, thank you.
Of course.
John
So,
Hamm?
Brian, we understand that you are the NASA Recovery Director for Crew-5, but you've actually done a lot of things for human spaceflight.
everyone.
Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, yeah, that's right. So I started my career as a flight controller for the ISS program. My team was responsible for maintenance on the space station. So I had the opportunity to work directly with the astronauts, train them on tools and repair procedures.
Affirmative.
So that was a lot of fun and something I never thought I would do when I was studying to be an engineer. After that, I moved over to the safety team, and I was our safety rep for the commercial crew program safety
I guess
panel.
it's not that
So
big
was
of a
my
problem, shaking
first
big.
exposure to
Or shaking
CCP, and
blade.
I would go review the hazard reports for Dragon and Starliner. That was a pretty neat experience also because I was able to work with Bob and Doug prior to Demo 2 and just kind of work with them on the hazard reports and get their perspective on the risk and the mission overall.
That's cool, Shaq.
After that, in 2020, I came out to Commercial Crew and I work for them directly now, and I've been doing launch and recovery operations since then. On the launch team, my role is to lead the rescue effort if we need to. If there's a pad emergency egress or a pad abort, the launch rescue director calls in the rescue forces. So that's what I did for Crew-5 launch last year. And then as the recovery director, I lead the NASA portion of the team that goes out on the ship with SpaceX. We bring out our flight surgeons and we check out the crew and we load them up on the helicopter and get them back home.
Right, so you've worn a lot of hats for the Commercial Crew program. How did your work as a flight controller in Houston prepare you to be a NASA Recovery Director?
Well, in Houston, working the ISS operations, you see day in and day out in the control center, you get the full feel of the 6-month mission, so you understand what the crew is going through for that long of a mission. And I think I just kind of bring that crew perspective of the ISS side to the CCP program. And so when it's time to bring the crew home, we know we owe them a smooth and speedy recovery. So that's our priority and our objective.
Right. Brian, it's great that you have that personal relationship with them. What challenges do you and the recovery team have to be prepared for?
Well, the biggest challenge for recovery
it's going to take a
Dragon
second.
is definitely the weather.
Got to seal the hatch. You got to make sure she's
find
fueled.
a landing site where the winds are low and the waves are low. So SpaceX has several landing sites around the state of Florida that we can look at and choose the best weather.
They can be whatever color you want.
Beyond that, we start looking at things like contingencies if the crew is injured, and we've got helicopters on standby for medevac if we need to.
Takes persistence.
And there's also just built-in redundancy on the ship
Good to know.
and throughout the vehicle. So
you can buy the jackets.
Weather's definitely the biggest challenge for landing.
Well,
right. No, weather is a huge challenge in Florida for a lot of things. And after Crew-5 returns, Brian, you're going to transition to a new role in the Commercial Crew program, mission manager for Crew-8. Can you tell us how you're preparing for that?
Sure. So as a mission manager, it's more
Dragon
of a high-level
SpaceX,
review.
just an update. We were doing some final
readiness
inspections
job for the entire mission, not just launch or landing. And that role begins 18 months out. So for Crew-8, which launches a year from now, we've already begun those meetings with SpaceX, and so it's pretty exciting to be a part of that early in the mission.
They're ninjas.
And yeah, I'm just honored and proud to do that for the program.
Of course. Well, congratulations, Brian. So glad to have you here tonight.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Daryl, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jasmine. And if you're just joining us, we are currently 2 hours and 7
I'd be
minutes.
disappointed, Scotsman, but I
liftoff.
wouldn't be surprised.
Crew-6, launching as part of NASA's Commercial Crew program, as we just heard so well. Commander Stephen Bowen,
they don't.
pilot Woody Hoberg, and mission specialist Sultan Al-Nayati.
How many will be up on the ISS when they get up there?
Are strapped into the seats behind that capsule right there, inside
that
Dragon
jacket is
Endeavour.
Banff, dude. I like it a lot.
And here's an interesting note about Endeavour. The SpaceX fleet leader in number of flights to and from the station is
there you
Endeavour.
Go for hatch close. They're up on the timeline here.
I watch. Yeah, I got to watch Bob and Doug go in, and
that's right.
Yeah, and then it's cool that we are proving out that you get to reuse these vehicles. It's not just a dream. We're actually doing it.
And they're certified now for 5 flights, which is a human certification that is done in partnership with the Commercial Crew program. The 3 previous flights for this Dragon was, as you mentioned, the historic first flight called Demo 2, then Crew 2, and then Axiom Mission 1, which you were on station, right?
We were,
when
yeah.
Axiom
I
came
Crew
into
1, right?
It's called the Zenith port. So yeah, we were there, which is pretty historic to have the first private astronauts from U.S. soil come up to the space station.
Unless I didn't hear that correctly.
And these astronauts today, Raja, that could happen for them as well if Axiom 2 goes up
supersonic
within their increment, right?
So supersonic, this hatch is for surface ingress and egress. That's for down here. This is where they'll come out of the capsule when they come back down. There's a docking port up on the front of Dragon. If they show the exterior of the spacecraft, there's a docking port on it, and it's behind a nose cone, and the nose cone on Dragon actually opens up, and the docking port pops out. Yeah, that's what they use to get into the space station. This hatch will not be opened again until Dragon is back down on the surface when the Crew-6 mission completes, which should be in about 6 months. That's why they're incessant, dude, about cleaning that hatch and taking all the pictures. They're doing the hatch seal check here. See, taking pictures of everything, document everything. You have to be absolutely sure as you possibly can be. So they have the pneumatic lines hooked up, and now they're evacuating the seals, bringing the seals down to vacuum here to make sure that hatch is good, and then they'll let it sit for a second, and then they'll do a leak check on it. Thank you, Ark. Much appreciated. What if Starship takes more than 5 flights for a capsule to be human certified? It's going to take a while, Selyut. Starship is a big ship. That is a big ship to get crew rated. I'm not going to say if SpaceX does it. When they get to that point, and I do think that they will, it's going to take some time, especially that flip and burn. You got to be very careful. They got to show that there's some way, in case a rocket engine doesn't land or break or something, that you can turn on another rocket engine and divert or whatever. Because, yeah, it's going to be a while before Starship sees some people flying on board. But that's by design. SpaceX knows that. Elon knows that. He knows that that's a ludicrous way to land people back down on the surface. Like a shuttle would make way more sense, like landing on a runway, or a capsule with parachutes, right? But the thing is, something like Starship, you can't parachute something that big. Starship is the size of the orange tank that flew on the shuttle. Parachutes don't work with that, man. There's no parachute in the world that's big enough to get that thing to slow down. Any parachutes you try to put on it, it's just going to rip right off and just keep going. Thing's got a lot of momentum when it comes through. So SpaceX's plan is to basically show that it's safe to fly by flying it a lot. You'd need so many freaking parachutes to get that to work. And that's why when NASA chose Starship for the human landing system, part of them choosing it is that, well, the HLS will fly with nobody on board going into space, and they'll use people to get Orion. They'll use SLS to get Orion to it.
Dragon DC on countdown 1, comm check.
Okay. Direct connection, so
DC Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
They should go through.
DC loud and clear. Stand by
band
for comm checks with MD.
Oh, nice, Scotsman.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, comm check.
MD is mission director.
MD Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
MD loud and clear. Stand by for comm check.
They can make more, Selyut. Or they can refurbish the capsule. Remember, those 5 flights are suited for reuse.
Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
Oh, okay, Shadowman.
MD Dragon, have you loud and clear over Dragon to ground.
Yeah, they got a armed launch
loud
escape
clear.
system.
Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Launch director.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1.
Razzie. They got to fuel the rocket up, dude.
LD Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
LD,
no, they built one
clear.
more,
Stand by
Selyut,
for
actually.
comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
Nah, Razzie, rockets are the best way to do it.
LD Dragon, have you loud and clear over Dragon to ground.
The air gets in the way if you tried to, railgun something up into space. On the moon, though, a linear accelerator like that, not a bad idea.
Dragon SpaceX with that launch configuration, comm checks are now.
Agreed, Ian. Yeah, that's what I mean. They're rated for 5 flights reuse right now. That doesn't mean that they won't refurbish these things and send them again, or they could be rated for more. I'll bet you they can take more.
And just making sure that all the key folks can get in contact with the crew if they need to, since there's a bunch of, if you can imagine, lots and lots of different comm loops on the ground with different people talking on different ones. So you want to make sure that they're
Dragon
connected.
SpaceX. We are going to commence health checks for the launch escape system. Expect momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Hey, Stabby. That man is playing Galaga.
SpaceX Dragon will be watching, thanks.
Yep, so the flight computer state he's talking about, so on the displays, in the bottom center of the displays, it tells you what state the flight computer is in. So right now it says hatch open.
Thought we wouldn't notice,
and the way that they know for sure that it's closed isn't just the door being closed, it's actually the flight computer state doing that, and that then allows them to initiate further commands. And then cleaning up your answer on the docking. So we talked about it's catching up to the space station, and then
is there
you do
enough
what's called
propulsion
phasing burns
to
to
then
get
ignite
closer
the rocket
to the space
below?
station. Once you get in,
no, they have rockets attached.
Either along the velocity vector from
there's
below,
rockets strapped to the side of Dragon.
Then you join up with the space station, and you'll see that tomorrow. Actually, when if you tune back on NASA TV, they'll show the docking.
Indeed, we will. Right around 3 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. They've got about a 24
it's part of the suit, Shaq. Those boots are part of the suit.
From launch
they just
to dock.
Made them darker to look like boots.
We want to take a pause now, and we'll keep monitoring the progress inside Dragon with the 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut. But in the meantime, we also want to check in with a special guest. Jasmine Hopkins, take it away.
Thanks so much, Daryl. Joining us now on the balcony of OSB-2 is Kurt Costello, the ISS Chief Scientist. Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, Jasmine.
We are so glad to have you here tonight. After Crew-6 launches, they'll become part of the Expedition 69 crew, and their time will be packed with spacewalks, a lot of science. So can you unpack some?
Dude, you guys say, oh, the astronauts are playing stuff on their iPad. Dude, there is downtime during flight operations and stuff. And yeah, they've definitely switched to an interior of the capsule before, and we've seen astronauts playing like Fruit Ninja and Angry Birds and stuff. Every one of them does have an iPad. I wonder what Andre's probably. Dude, he's playing Cookie Clicker. Yo, he's playing Cookie Clicker. You see that? He's playing Cookie Clicker, I swear.
Impacts the immune system of the crew members.
Right, Kurt. As you said,
that was Cookie Clicker, man.
With a lot of science, a 6-month science mission for them. One of the experiments that's been long-standing is called tissue chips. Can you tell us more about that first initiative with the National Institutes of Health?
Yeah, this is actually the second in a series of the NIH NCATS, which stands for National Center for Advancing Translational Science.
Yeah, that's right.
And what we're looking at
Hank
are
watched
tissue
Spaceballs
chips,
during re-entry.
Sets of cells and tissues that go into the ISS and are grown out. And this set of experiments from the ISS National Lab is really set to look at treatments for those tissues. So we'll be having 2 investigations go on board. The first is called Cardinal Heart 2.0, and they'll be looking at treatments that could help deal with cardiac stressors on orbit. And the other one is called Engineered Heart Tissues 2.0. And this one is really interesting. They've got those same heart tissues growing, but this time they're attached to a magnet. And the magnet tells us how hard that heart tissue beats and contracts on orbit.
Yep.
So these living heart cells are going to be able to tell us, 1, how hard they're working in the presence of the spaceflight environment, and then treatments are going to be applied to them so we can understand if that can help with those stressors.
Wow, it's nice to hear that some of the research we're doing on station could benefit our health here on Earth as well. There's also a combustion experiment called Sophie Mist. Can you tell us about that as well?
It's an
Sure. Sophie Mist is a combustion experiment for solids.
Simba,
Sophie
what's up,
stands for solids in flight extinction. So ignition and extinction. And what we're looking at are how solid materials burn under different atmospheric pressures and different concentrations of oxygen. The reason for this is our exploration vehicles have different atmospheres, and we want to understand how solids burn in space and how they can be extinguished efficiently. So we want to be able to put out any fires that ever occur in a cabin.
Right, that's very important. ISS Chief Scientist Kurt Costello, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
We figured that one out the hard
way,
huh?
Of course. Daryl, back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine and Kurt. And I thought it was interesting he was talking about that Sophie experiment and burning materials in space. You worked on some experiments.
They are electrocuted for the HLS program.
So
they're working on it right now.
Yeah, well, you got to be really careful.
Clearly.
Yeah,
not
so
right now,
Shaq. Part of Expedition 66, we did several experiments with the combustion chamber, and it is a piece of engineering. So getting to work on it, install new materials. But the really cool thing, so Kirk mentioned part of it, like there's the one piece is making sure there's not fires. The other thing we're really interested in is there's some work going on
Hey,
on
Geyser.
the cold flames.
Got some
and
staying
so
up. Dude, we got
flames
2
on
more
the
today.
Earth because of the gravity field.
2 more Falcon 9s.
You have the hot part.
Actually,
and you see
it would
actually
be
go up.
tomorrow,
And Jenny Seide in our
technically.
class is a combustion engineer. So there's some really fascinating things. But in microgravity, it's a ball of flame. And so some really interesting research is, some cold combustion engine type technology where you could reduce greenhouse gas emissions because of the way the flame burns. So that is the kind of fundamental science we're doing combustion research up there.
Is this because it's more of an efficient burn?
Well, it burns different. Exactly. You can have a cooler flame as it burns out instead of having this sort of wasted stuff as it goes in
How
the So
about that?
yeah, some just amazing things that
Dragon,
fall out
SpaceX, good side hatch leak check.
That fall out of research we never expected.
That's cool.
SpaceX Dragon copies. That's good news.
And you just heard the core talk about the leak check pass.
Concur with that, Steve. And we also have a post-ingress briefing when you're ready to copy.
Yeah, that's great news.
We are ready to copy the post-ingress briefing.
That is neat. They're talking about blowing things up
we
in a
have
little
no
box
updates on
inside of the
weather from
ISS.
the previous
It's pretty
briefing,
cool.
And Dragon and Falcon are tracking no issues for launch. We're looking good here.
Cookie clicker, man.
The
I'm telling
NASA
you.
team, for your
Okay.
awareness,
I am on
is
through,
tracking
my
a
friend.
possible conjunction for ISS in about 22 hours and is considering performing a PDAM if required. We are still go for launch, regardless of if the PDAM will be required. If we do take that avoidance maneuver, or if ISS takes that avoidance maneuver, they may attempt to perform it prior to the Dragon boost burn, which helps to minimize impacts to our rendezvous timeline. We will come back after launch with more information as the joint teams evaluate if the PDAM is required, as well as if there are any updates to your mission timeline. I'll copy.
And SpaceX Dragon.
No, they've been
copy
there,
all.
Pythos.
Thank you for the heads up on the PDAM, and we'll be bringing those words after we get to orbit.
So a possible conjunction.
Right, conjunction is a fancy term for hitting something, running into it.
For
For
the space station,
right?
not
Not for the Dragon. So as you heard, there's still go for launch, and kind of ties into this question we had from social media before about docking. I mentioned there's a timeline, and you heard the
That's
core
a
talk.
good read back, Dragon. And at this time, we'll step into comm checks with Falcon 9 operators. Please report when you're ready.
PDAM, potential debris avoidance maneuver. Basically,
All right, SpaceX Dragon, we're ready for comm check with the Falcon 9 operator.
there's a lot of junk up there. Sometimes the
before they
ISS
did the
has to
comm checks
maneuver
with,
around
the
it. That's what they're
SpaceX,
talking
the
about. And they're
Dragon
saying that
team
it could
does
affect their
the
rendezvous
Countdown
time
1
because the ISS isn't going to be where they think it's going to be because it moved.
So this is the launch.
Dragon, GNC on countdown 1, comm check.
And GNC Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Guidance, navigational control.
GNC loud and clear. Stand by
Navigation
for comm
and
check by the
control.
propulsion
GNC.
engineer.
Prop engineer.
Dragon, prop on countdown 1, comm check.
Who knows? One of you guys could be
And prop
Andre
Dragon, have you
talking.
loud and clear on countdown 1.
Prop, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check with the avionics engineer.
Dragon Avionics on countdown 1, comm check.
Avionics Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Avionics loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the ground segment engineer.
Dragon, ground segment on countdown 1, comm check.
And ground Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
That's true, Blingo.
Ground segment, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by launch control.
Dragon, launch control on countdown 1, comm check.
Launch control Dragon, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
Peep, I wouldn't be surprised.
Launch control, loud
Gotta
and
be
clear.
KSP2
Stand by
now,
for
though.
comm check by the chief engineer. Dragon, CE on countdown 1, comm check.
CE Dragon, have you loud and clear
That's
on
cool,
countdown
Fit.
1.
CE, loud and clear. This completes the F9 responsible engineer comm checks.
I believe that, Serge. I believe that.
If there was any kind of problem with the rocket, a subsystem of the rocket, you'd want that person to be able to talk directly to the crew. So there's
Ecom, try SCE to auxiliary. That's a very good example of why. How efficient are rocket engines compared to a normal car? Efficiency really depends on the propellant. Yeah, it really depends on what propellant you're using. I mean, Falcon is probably a little bit more efficient than a diesel in terms of like, so if we're talking about straight efficiency and you're trying to compare efficiency from a rocket to efficiency of a diesel, you have to compare what's called total impulse. total impulse is basically how much energy you can squeeze amount. Like if there's like a theoretical maximum amount of energy that you could squeeze out of an amount of fuel, right? How much can you get out? Like how much can it get out of it? Rockets can generally get a little bit more out of it because the explosion's a little bit more, violent. You have the exact same hat, right on. Hey, Elm, 43-month resub. But, I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but generally the rocket's a little bit more efficient than an automobile.
Normal, at least once a week we hear about one when you're on the space station. Most of them resolve themselves very rarely.
But yeah, if you want to learn more about that, like I said, read about specific impulse and total impulse and how that pertains to like
station, and anything that possibly could go in there, we always want to investigate. So this is probably just the beginning of that investigation, and then as we learn more about it, it's probably not going to be a problem, but we always are wanting to make sure we're very conservative with the crew.
Make sure
you're
ready in case it's not. All right,
Yep.
very good. Well, now we want to...
So you would want to read about specific impulse and then total impulse. So rocket engines have specific impulse, which means how much they burn. Ooh, Reed Wiseman and Bill are there. Hold on. Specific impulse, total impulse, mass flow rate, and exit velocity. With rocket engines, you want to read about efficiency? Those four.
Launching and going into the heavens.
Exactly. We're always happy to have you back here, Administrator Nelson. So first question for you. International partnership is the lifeblood of the commercial crew program. We have
I think so, Ian. That's why I want to pay attention.
A Roscosmos cosmonaut on board, but this is the first time we have a UAE astronaut on board. Can you talk about those international partnerships?
Bill. He runs NASA.
You know, as we go back to the moon after 50 years, it's not just the U.S. government. It's now an international mission, and it's a public-private partnership as we go back to the moon and then on to Mars. In this particular case, going to commercial crew to the International Space Station, it's very much both of those as well.
Damn it.
Public-private partnership with SpaceX, and then international crew. So much so that you've got our partners ever since we built the space station, the Russians. We're now sending an American astronaut on the Soyuz, and they are sending a Russian cosmonaut on Dragon. And we will have many other nationalities going
P2
as
electrocutor.
well.
Right, we go
Bill's
farther
done all right.
if we go together. Reed, question for you. We right now are in low Earth orbit on the International Space Station. That is paving the way for deep space. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Reed,
I think
tell
the
us.
International Space Station, we've had crew on there since the year 2000. We don't even think about it anymore, right? So we have 7 folks up there right now, and they've been orbiting the Earth. They just flew over us here about a half an hour ago, and they're going to come back around. But the thing that really blows your mind up there is all of the environmental control, life support systems that we have, how much we're recycling water, all the science that we're conducting, and we really have learned how to operate off of our planet. So we can do that now 250 miles up, so it's time to start doing that 250,000 miles away at the moon and then heading on to Mars.
380,000 kilometers.
Great time to be at NASA. We actually polled the NASA workforce, and they want to know from both of you, what missions are you most looking forward to in 2023? A very exciting time for us.
Okay, Chris.
All of them.
Good answer, good answer.
And by the way, it's not just space. We're going to fly the X-57 all-electric airplane, the X-59 supersonic, low sonic boom airplane, and then our climate. We are putting up all kinds of instruments up there that are measuring very specifically what's happening to the Earth.
Right, that's really important for us to know what's going on here on the planet. Reed, would you like to add anything?
I have to add that we're standing here at Cape Canaveral. We got 4 of our friends behind us, so I'm rooting for Crew-6 today.
Absolutely, go Crew-6. Thank you both for being here tonight. Daryl, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jasmine. And although going into space is not child's play, every Dragon astronaut crew brings, every Dragon astronaut I should say, they bring a stuffed toy with them. And its purpose, when the toy starts floating, the strapped-in crew has confirmation they've reached microgravity. And what is this called? This is called a zero-G indicator. It's a long-standing tradition. And there's been 7 on Dragon so far. There's 1 in this Dragon as well. Starting with this guy. All began with Flush Earth. Who can forget him floating around by himself in the first uncrewed flight? 2017 called Demo 1. That was followed up by a sequin bedazzled dinosaur named
Apatosaurus,
picked out by Bob Benken's son Theo and crewmate Doug Hurley's son Jack. Crew 1 took a toy Baby Yoda with them to show the first 4-person crew.
Damn it, Daryl, it's Grogu.
But since then, it's been all stuffed animals. A penguin for Crew 2. And then, of course, Raj's flight, a turtle for Crew 3.
Good old
There's
Bow,
Caleb Aaron, yeah. And then a turtle and a chimp for Crew 4. For the last mission, though, on Crew 5, they unveiled the first humanoid, the Albert Einstein Little Thinker plush doll. And so that begs the question,
very
what
smart.
is Crew 6's 0G? We'll find out later. But you had the turtle, and there's a special reason for that.
It is, yeah. So our class of 2017, we're called the Turtles, which, so the previous class always names the next class. And I think a lot of people thought Turtles was supposed to be an insult because it's slow, but that's actually quite the opposite. The reason is when the vice president announced our class, he said that if you ever see a turtle on a fence post, you know the turtle didn't get there by itself. And so we take it as quite a nod to the people that got us to where we're at, which is very true, that none of us would be where we're at without our families, the flight controllers, the trainers that got us there. And so we actually love the term turtle and don't take it as an insult at all. But yeah, we had every crew takes a while to develop theirs with ours. Actually, our turtle was named Pfau, which is German for turtle, since Matthias was our German crewmate, and it was actually a rainbow turtle, a peacock turtle, which is because Tom was class the peacock. So it was a nod to everyone on the crew.
You merged that in there. That was nice. All right, as they seal up, get the final, they've sealed the hatch, but now they're doing some final checks there.
The turtles are awesome,
We want to
dude.
check in. Back
He can
with
stop.
Mission Control in Houston.
Nah, it's Roger
Courtney
Tech.
Beasley. Courtney?
He's a Roger.
Thanks, Daryl. When Crew
fighter
6
pilot,
arrives
dude.
at the
He's
space
alright.
station tomorrow morning, they will
He can be
officially
cringe.
become Expedition 68 flight engineers. Once on board, they'll do something known as a direct handover,
Whose turtle
basically
is it
saying
for,
that
Lauren?
Crew 5 and Crew 6 will be aboard the space station all together until Crew 5 comes home. Crew
It's all
5
good.
will be
Right
able
on,
to
man,
give
right on.
Crew 6 an orientation and show them the ropes, which might be particularly helpful for the first time space.
So Russia's committed to 2028, guys. They're into 2028. We're into 2030. Yeah. Nothing has changed on that front, dude. Space stays apolitical, which is good, and I like it that way. And I would expect you guys to do the same. Okie dokie.
Tori, the crew will jump right into conducting experiments.
Fast
with
forward.
new
Prepare to
research
fast
still
forward.
to be
Prepare to fast forward.
delivered
Fast
on
forwarding,
upcoming
sir.
cargo flights. And now we'll go ahead and toss it back to the team out at Kennedy. Daryl.
Daryl.
Hey, thank you very much, Courtney. And as you can see on the screen there, the closeout crew.
They sent up another
They
one.
are tethered because they're up so high. That's a 255-foot level.
Yeah, it's just
Safety measure. Yep.
there's
They're
a 250
basically taking some closeout
foot
photographs to
drop, like
document
straight
the hatch
into the flame
closure.
trench.
We heard them talk about earlier that the hatch close state. Remember, that's the cue to the crew that's happening. And after they get some closeout photos, they can start backing away and closing
Hatch
out.
seal leak checks were good, I
hence
guess.
the name of the crew.
Yeah.
Closing out the white room.
And while we do
With
that,
black
we've got
curtains.
a special guest here that we want to talk to out here at the host desk. Our next guest played a key supportive role in the development of the
Now,
Falcon 9
Serge.
rocket and that Dragon spacecraft that we've been watching and will eventually launch here in an hour and 42 minutes. His name is John Posey, and he is NASA's Crew Dragon lead engineer. Thank you so much for being here, John.
Cool.
So tell me, we want to, first of all, make something clear about SpaceX's Dragon, right? They designed it, they built Dragon, they fly
Yes,
it
Ian.
for us, and our astronauts go in it. But since the beginning, there's been NASA expertise supporting them. So what would you say is some of the best expertise that NASA has provided in this regard?
Oh yeah, excellent question. So with the commercial crew program, it's kind of different from past crew spaceflight programs, right? We have a smaller team. Like for the spacecraft, there's around only about 100 NASA engineers on our team that are getting all the work done. And NASA brings a lot of very special expertise to the table to try to help SpaceX and our other commercial partners, prepare for this day, right? Getting everything ready. We especially brought some great expertise in things like life support systems, of course, spacesuits, thermal protection systems, and perform a lot of analysis, in a lot of cases, double checking the great analysis performed by SpaceX, running the numbers, making sure everything matches up so that,
Yeah, I agree, Deep Days.
We're assured of crew safety on launch day.
Absolutely. Well, that is important.
Yeah, Sally,
and you
you're
were
right.
telling me that, speaking of safety requirements, that there was a NASA safety requirement in the case of extreme fire emergency that combined with a Dragon design will make it so that astronauts will be able to do something that's never been done before. What is that?
Oh yeah, so you know, as you mentioned, right? NASA set some really great safety requirements for our crew. The Crew Dragon has a lot of oxygen and nitrox systems on board for those really deep emergency contingency cases. You know, for instance, feed the leak. If we were to have a 1/4-inch sized hole in the cabin, we could provide breathable nitrox air to the crew all the way to landing. Also, in like a fire scenario, if our air scrubber systems couldn't scrub it out or dilution purge wasn't enough, we had the ability to vent the cabin completely to vacuum while the crew safely pressurized in their spacesuits and press it back up with a clean atmosphere. And so, you know, that's where, you know, the commercial aspect of this is really exciting for us. You know, you saw SpaceX announce for Polaris Dawn, right? They're going to perform their first Dragon extravehicular activity, EVA, right? Actually do that similar type of a thing where they can vent down the cabin, create like an impromptu airlock, and then repressurize it.
That's cool.
How about that?
Gemini
and
style.
We've got Raja here, an astronaut, depress the cabin. You were ready for it as an emergency scenario, but for Polaris Dawn, going to depress the cabin and they float right out the door.
Yeah, it's super exciting to see the progress going on in low Earth orbit and commercialization. I mean, that's exactly the NASA dream. And you heard the administrator talk about that's what we want to do is enable industry to do things in low Earth orbit and then let NASA work on exploration in the Moon and Mars. So this is it's amazing to see it happening.
And NASA is right there by the side. Let's talk a little bit now about the
What a
Falcon
totally
9.
amazing,
you know,
excellent
coincidentally,
discovery.
you were also involved at the beginning of that vehicle with NASA. What contributions were made to the Falcon 9 and getting it going?
Yeah, so you know, I remember being back when I was a space shuttle propulsion engineer. You know, watching those early Falcon 1 live streams, getting the first privately funded rocket to orbit with the liquid propelled vehicle. Really exciting. So when Falcon 9 was coming along on the commercial orbital transportation services COTS contract, they were getting that Dragon 1 ready, Falcon 9 ready. And I remember, that program was headed by Kathy Leaders, who later became commercial crew program manager and now associate administrator. But they tasked the launch services team with reviewing the safety of the Falcon 9 for CRS, commercial resupply services. And at the time, shuttle program was winding down. I was on detail to launch services. So I asked if I could join that team to help assess it. And, before I knew it, we were working day to day with the SpaceX propulsion engineers. And, that was really an eye-opening experience, right? SpaceX was moving at a high pace, rapid pace of innovation, getting a lot of hardware built, getting out there, testing it. And so we were trying to share the lessons learned we had from shuttle and other NASA programs, but at the same time we were learning from them and seeing new approaches and ways of doing things.
Are they allowed to take a nap? Yes.
So we, tried to pull together a lot of that expertise, try to share the pitfalls that they might come across along the way. But yeah, I was able to sit in the launch control center. Actually, we were at a Hangar AE across for the first Falcon 9 flight, and that was just an amazing day.
Yeah, and now...
So, are they allowed to take a nap? Noteworthy. Yeah, of course they can take a nap. But it's morning for them. No, I don't mean it's past midnight. The astronauts adjust their sleep schedule to GMT because the ISS is on Greenwich Mean Time. Or UTC, technically. I mean, universal time. It's the same thing, right? So they stay on GMT, so it's technically for them it's 6 a.m. So they just got up.
Earth and space, fostering international cooperation. So it's something I set my sights on.
So they could sleep now.
And went into aerospace engineering to go
We've
work
seen
on
them
the space
take a
program.
nap
And
before.
here you are, and you're actually headed now to Firing Room 4. Real quickly, what are you going to be doing for this launch?
Yeah, so I'm going to be hopping on console for the on-orbit shift as spacecraft chief engineer with the spacecraft engineering team. So I'll go over there. My deputy Brian Remark's about to poll for go to launch from the launch team, and then we'll make sure everything's good to go for our exciting Crew-6 mission today.
Is it 5:08 UTC? So it's 5 in the morning. So they might take a nap, actually.
Thank you so
Sorry,
much for
my
being
bad.
here.
Glad to be here.
Time zones
And
and
good
stuff.
luck tonight.
Thank you.
All right, now let's head out to our VIP location where our Jasmine Hopkins is with a pair of special guests. Jasmine?
Oh, I'd enjoy the ride
Thank
fully.
you
I'd
so
be,
much,
I'd be
Daryl.
hyped
The
up.
energy here on the balcony of OSB2 is really picking up as we're getting closer to launch. And right now, I'm honored to be joined by Salam Al-Mari, the Director General of the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center,
They're
as
on
well
Zulu,
as
we are
Hazza
correct.
Al-Mansouri, UAE astronaut. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jasmine, for having us.
Of course, we're so honored to have you here. And Salam, first question for you. This is a really significant
They're in Florida, Cornbread, but the
first
ISS
time that we
is
have
on
a
UTC,
commercial crew
dude.
astronaut from the UAE.
And they adjust
What
their
does that
sleep
mean
schedules
you?
to it before
I
they
mean, that
launch.
means a lot. I mean, it's a big responsibility for us. And I think from day one, when we kicked off this program in 2017, we wanted to have a long-term program, a sustainable program, and a program that has a positive impact on human spaceflight. So we selected our astronauts, we made sure they're training with NASA, they're training with Roscosmos, they get the full set of training so that they can be astronauts that can contribute to the advancement of human spaceflight. So this mission really is a fulfillment of that vision. Today, when we get an astronaut from the UAE going on a 6-month increment and doing the same things that NASA astronauts and the USOS astronauts will be doing, I think that really means a lot to the UAE.
It really does. And as you just mentioned, training with NASA, Hazal, you were the first Emirati in space. You and Sultan actually trained together. Can you talk about that?
That was really great privilege. I mean, like since childhood, like back in UAE, that to dream to go to space, that was a little bit critical. And even just to say that in schools back home, to say that I want to be an astronaut, that was something that not an option for us. But when they did the announcement back in 2017 and we saw that opportunity, we applied, Sultan and myself and 4,000 applicants from UAE just to apply to be UAE astronauts. So we had that privilege. We have been selected for the first batch in UAE. We went to Russia to train and I went to space.
Cool,
I flew to space in 2019. Sultan, he was my backup in that mission and I am now as his backup in this mission. That was amazing journey for both of us. I mean, like, we trained back in Russia and we came here, we did the whole like ASCAN training. The amount of support we saw in the whole community here at NASA, that was really huge. Just to make this mission happen for UAE. It's big and huge and we are really excited. I am super excited to see my colleague Sultan and Woody, Steve and Andrei Fedayev launch to space. It's gonna be an amazing mission for them. 6 months on board the station, doing science, exploring and conducting different sessions with different schools and kids. That's for me is a big thing.
It
See
really
the
is. It's a
2.5
big
patch?
thing. We're
How's
so
this
glad
been
to
to
have both of you
space?
tonight. Thank you
He
so
flew
much.
on Soyuz.
Thank you.
Of course.
That's what that
Bill,
2.5
back
patch
to you.
means.
Thank
Pretty
you,
cool,
Jasmine.
right?
And now we are T-minus 1 hour and 33 minutes from launch as we get ready for Crew-6 to take off from the Kennedy Space Center. Now, here's a closer look at some of the life-changing science astronauts are performing aboard the International Space Station.
Yeah, let's learn more about it.
The International Space Station is a state-of-the-art microgravity laboratory that is unlocking discoveries not possible on Earth and helping us push farther into deep space.
Every single day, we are answering big questions about Earth and about space, about where we came from and about where we're going. But the other thing that we're doing is we're learning more questions to ask.
Oh, bye, CubeSats.
Microgravity turns almost everything we know
That's
upside
Matthias.
down. Liquids behave
Mark Van
completely
High.
differently. Fire burns
Yeah.
in new ways.
See?
Biological
That's a
systems
candle.
reveal surprises.
Burns in a
There's
circle.
few things that have made me gasp out loud up on board Space Station. Watching heart cells actually beat has been a pretty big one.
We're studying ways to
Plants.
grow food in microgravity.
I got to tell you, these are pretty amazing.
We're learning how human bodies react to life in space and how to
Hey,
keep
there's
crew
Roger.
members safe and strong on long-duration exploration missions.
Jessica Watkins.
Deadlifts are awesome on Earth.
Samantha.
They're also awesome in zero gravity.
We're testing technologies that will be critical to our return to the moon and great leap to Mars. Our research has contributed to medical and social benefits on our home planet, allowing us to
That'd be
find
cool,
new
Fuller.
ways to combat disease back on Earth and develop technologies to deliver clean water to remote communities in need.
NASA purification systems, guys, are all over the
The
world.
spectacular vantage point of more than 200 miles above our planet supports our monitoring
That's
of
right,
Earth's
Joe Simba.
climate, natural disasters, and plant life.
The orbital perspective that we have here on the ISS is just absolutely amazing. Earth is gorgeous.
Italy.
The growing new space economy, so vital to our continued progress in space, is flourishing in low Earth orbit.
So, Hi-Vi's NASA's program that's kind of the sequel to the ISS, dude, is called the Commercial Low Earth Orbit Destinations Program, or CLEOD for short. CLEOD is a program to replace the ISS with a bunch of commercially operated space stations, and NASA will basically pay to use space on these space stations. They're not going to replace the ISS with one gigantic space station when it goes. They're going to replace it with a swarm of smaller ones that are all commercially operated. The idea is that NASA doesn't want to get bogged down with building a space station in low Earth orbit and committing to that project for 30 years. They want to go back to the moon and stuff, but they still want the to have low Earth orbit access. Just because NASA's going to the moon doesn't mean they shouldn't stop doing research in space, right? In low Earth orbit. So they're basically trying to kickstart a commercial low Earth orbit economy with a bunch of these stations that you can go to. Because if NASA's going to pay you to operate a station, it's not going to be that much more of a stretch to send like tourists to a space station or to have commercial scientific research being done. For instance, pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical synthesis in space actually gives you a higher yield. So it gives you more. It makes more potent drugs. That's what I'm trying to say. If you grow some dro in space, it'll be more potent. Yeah. Everyone just went, what? Seriously, they actually proved that in the 80s. So what they're trying to do is basically kickstart a commercial low Earth orbit economy that could include like commercial scientific research, NASA farming out life sciences, Earth science observation, pharmaceutical manufacturing in space, on-orbit manufacturing in space. That's what they're trying to kickstart. They're trying to kickstart that and then go to the moon.
Oxygen loading preparations to make sure the propellants and the
It's
ground
true.
tanks are correct.
Actually, plants in space can focus on growing more because they don't have to worry about resisting gravitational pull. Anybody here has ever grown cherry tomatoes? You know what I'm talking about, right? You stalk the cherry tomatoes. You stalk a grapevine, right? So it has something to grow up against, right? But the grapevine grows the best when it grows across a pergola or a lattice or something, right? If it has something to hold it up, you get more potent yield. In space, plants grow in all directions. They grow everywhere. They don't need to use resources to hold themselves up in the air. So they could just use all the resources to basically grow. The stuff that grows in space is actually super potent. It doesn't matter if it's a pepper or if it's a pharmaceutical or you're synthesizing a pharmaceutical that doesn't grow, but you get the idea. Cosmic Kush. Yeah. No, seriously. The dro must be mint if you're into that, you know?
So we saw, like you mentioned, the hatch seal's been checked.
Touch of cosmic
now they're
rays.
Closing out the white room. They'll evacuate the closeout crew.
I'm into that.
That will be when they let the crew know that they're ready to arm the LES before they can start prop loading. You mentioned
Section 6.
The Falcon engineers. So like the F9 team is really kind of taking the prime role right now, monitoring the systems, getting ready to make sure.
What Dragon is flying? Endeavor.
To load the prop on the vehicle.
It's
the
fourth
reason
flight.
they do it on the vehicle, it's because rockets are hard, as it turns out. Getting space is hard.
What Blinga said,
your
Fuller.
mass margins, the weight is so critical. So you really want to wait until the latest you possibly can.
Dude,
to
ghost
put the gas
peppers
on
in
the
space
vehicle,
would be
because
ridiculous,
it's
Serge. No
cryogenically
joke.
cooled,
Not even
it's
kidding.
Super cold, and so it starts to boil off. And so the less amount of time it's on the rocket, the more gas you have. And so you want to wait until as late as you can, but also have enough time, obviously, to do it and get to space. So the longer you wait, and it's a balance of wait as long as you can, but still have enough to get it all on board, and that gives you the most gas to use to get into orbit and then have gas to get to the space station.
SpaceX using super chilled, highly densified liquid oxygen that, as you say, you get more performance out of it.
That's right, Shaq.
Out of it the later they load. Currently, we're at 1 hour and 27 minutes and counting, looking at Launch Complex 39A and the Falcon 9 rocket, a new booster.
If you had to put a year on a moon base
on this one,
what year would it be?
Along with
2028, 2029.
Dragon Endeavor. The booster 1078-1.
Alex, yeah, you want to get that industry stimulated.
So typically from a flight, they're going to fly it for the first time for Crew-6. It's in good shape and ready to go. Dragon will fly its next.
NASA's got plans,
to the
Space.
International Space Station. The
absolutely.
Astronauts that are inside.
Oh, NASA got plans.
Our commander Stephen.
Oh, they got
Bowen.
plans. Don't worry.
He's in seat number 3. Pilot Woody Hoberg, and mission specialist Sultan Al-Nayati and Andrei Fedyaev.
I haven't heard anything like that,
they've got their visors up. We talked before about they'll leave their visors up until they arm the LES, or the launch escape system, just to just be a little more comfortable. And you did mention we had actually the opposite configuration.
What happened to
for,
fresh
for
food in
Crew
space?
3. We had a new capsule, Endurance, and then a reused
Same
booster.
thing that happens to
but today,
fresh food down
like
here.
you said, the fleet-leading Endeavour capsule and a new booster, a new first stage.
Chief,
and
one of
the
the
cool things
Odyssey.
we get to see, while the launch coverage, the folks here actually KSC, the launch coverage is on the capsule, but the other thing that happens with the SpaceX launch is that first stage coming back, which is also a cool thing to see, which I haven't seen before because I haven't seen a launch, but I'm looking forward to that today. So I got to enjoy.
You hear how fast Raja is talking? You think he's hype? You think he's hype, dude? He's not even on the rocket. The guy's like, yeah, he's talking a freaking mile a minute, dude. I dig it, man. I'm gonna have a beer with this guy.
Out in the Atlantic Ocean right now, several hundred miles offshore, and it will be receiving, as you mentioned, that first.
They're not sitting on top of a huge bomb yet, Biff. They gotta fuel it.
Back down to
but
Earth.
soon,
Of course,
though, yeah.
SpaceX has had great success lately with landing that first stage booster, and then they'll put it right back in and get it.
Does it
refurbished
freeze?
and
Not rot?
put it
It'll
into
rot.
The cycle of boosters.
So if you have food up there, it's gonna rot just like food down here. Sure, absolutely. Because the atmosphere inside of the ISS is pretty much our atmosphere here. It's nitrogen and oxygen at what is it, guys? Like it's 14 psi, right? So 100 kilopascals. It's pretty much one atmosphere in there, so it'll rot just like it does down here. Now, if you put it out in the vacuum, it'll freeze, and then it'll stay like that until you pull it back in. I wouldn't. I mean, freeze dried. I wouldn't do that. That probably is not good for you. It's probably irradiated after that. But I digress. Yeah, it'll rot up there if they just had a pepper just sitting on the shelf or on a shelf, right? It'll rot. You got to be careful with that stuff. No problem, Tech. Yeah, the Artemis Accords was a very good idea, Aqualex. Smart.
Few days for your vestibular system to reset, about a week for kind of your balance and stability, and then potentially a few months for some of your full strength to come back.
When you're in space, you get to.
Jim, I'm not really sure what the physics of putting a piece of fruit out the airlock is going to do, man. I'm not going to lie to you.
To bring a few personal items for the roughly 6 months stay in space. And so here are a few of the items that they are taking up for Crew-6. Sultan Al-Niyadi said he's bringing a kimono, the traditional training attire of the martial art jiu-jitsu. He's on all the way far right of the screen. He's also bringing some small toy rockets from the popular European comic Tintin.
Dude.
Andrei Fediev is taking his family photos and some pins he plans on bringing back and sharing with his family. But for the astronaut right there, the second from the left, Woody Hoberg, he's bringing one simple item, and that's a photograph with deep personal meaning to him.
In terms of personal items, mine's simple. Unfortunately, over the summer, I lost my father, and so I'm just bringing a photo of him that means a lot to me. And I wish he could come along with me, but at least I will be bringing him along with me. So.
And here is the photo that he's bringing. Woody says it's a picture of his dad, Jim Hoberg, finishing the Boston Marathon and leaving it all on the course. Jim Hoberg, along with his wife Peggy, raised Woody and his brother in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was an electrical engineering professor at Carnegie Mellon University, where he was known for his exceptional teaching. He was 75 years of age when he passed away last year. Woody says he will remember his father for always showing up and for his relentless pursuit of truth. And he says when he gets to space, he plans to keep the photo in his crew quarters. That's a touching thing to do.
I'm sending my dad a text right now. I'm not even kidding.
I think just all the more reason we're proud of the Turtle's name is Woody's dad is why Woody is Woody, right? So it's just like all of us. And yeah, it was sad for that to happen while he was in training, and I'm glad he's able to take him with him to orbit.
Now, you mentioned that you actually brought some items aboard, and we actually have some of them, some of the things from your flight kits. We want to take a look at that.
So basically,
send your dad a
in
text,
the
guys,
Dragon,
when you
you
can.
have about a shoebox size of
Not
stuff
even kidding.
you can bring
Like
things.
super serious, man.
So I also brought some pictures along with my kids. So I've got some cards that my children made for me. So all in all, just like Woody, all these things wound up in my crew quarters on the space station.
This went to space.
This all went to space. This is my my PT gear from the Academy, the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
So
Oh, no.
People
Air
accuse
Force,
me
not Army.
of buying
stupid.
one, but it's legit because it's still got the stamp with like the
Oh, there
laundry
it is.
stamp.
Yeah.
So that's the real deal. That's it doesn't fit. I think maybe the shirt shrunk over the years. I think
Okay.
is what happened. That's what I tell myself. My wife's gonna kill me, but I'm not supposed to show this.
Oh,
This
boy.
is my space retainer. Because so I had braces when I was a kid, and now that I'm a dad, having to think about braces for my kids, I know how expensive it is, and I didn't want to have to get braces again, so I took
This
my
is costly.
This is my space
The crew in the background's
You don't wanna have
laughing.
to
The
redo
camera
braces
is
now.
laughing.
So, but
So
now,
those things floated around in space
these
and
were
in your mouth.
my mouth. Yeah. A turtle patch, of course. So that's pretty typical for to bring patches, things like that. My wife made me. I had several cards for different days of the week, so care package style cards.
Really?
So,
For every
not every day.
Okay.
But this was like any Thursday card.
Oh, that's sweet.
So
cool.
Like most things in my life, she's better than me, so she thought of that. This is a pair of dice. So this is in my first fighter squadron in the Air Force was the 90th Fighter Squadron, which is the pair of dice. And if you notice, any direction is always 7, lucky 7. And so you get your first one. You basically get these pair after you're combat qualified in the 90th Fighter Squadron, and then you wear them on your pocket. And then an RMO, which stands for round metal object. We avoid saying the word COIN in the Air Force. It's tradition because when you say the word, that's a challenge to someone that they have to have it. So we use the acronym RMO. But so this is our Crew 3 one, our Crew 3 patch, and then our Expedition 66 patch on the back.
Hold that for a second. That was really neat. You helped in the design of this with the fire coming out of
Nice.
the
Dragon,
dragon,
those.
making the 3.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Crew 3 patch has the 3 and then the dragon.
That's
the
cool,
dragon
man.
In the flame. And people do point out this is you wouldn't want to actually see flame.
Well, yeah, no.
That would be a bad thing. That would be the abort engine. But it's a cool visual graphic.
Yeah, very good. Very
Wait,
good.
Pythos,
All
that
stuff went to
you
space.
telling me that Rogers
Thank you for sharing that.
started on the
That was really
F-22?
neat to walk through everything that you took up, and all of that
Yeah,
fit
me
into
too,
a
Chief.
shoebox.
All of it's in a shoebox. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you
And
so
in
much.
space, it floats out, so you got to be really careful to keep track of it all.
Right. You mentioned, the crew patch.
That's
And
cool,
so,
man. I love
on
seeing
that
stuff like
note,
that. It's my
every
favorite.
NASA space flight going to station has a mission patch designed by the crew, and this is Crew-6's mission patch. And what you'll notice right away is the wooden Dragon ship with a dragon figurehead. That's because each Crew-6 member has an affinity for seafaring vessels. Huh? How about that? And check out the anchor. It's the International Space Station sitting right there on the ship. Lastly, the sail, Crew-6 says, represents the 3 planetary bodies of the Earth, Moon, and Mars. And you can see the Earth in blue, the Moon in gray and white with the number 6.
I agree,
And
Scott.
then the ultimate destination of NASA's Artemis program, the red planet. That's a pretty cool design.
It's my
cool,
boat.
The cool thing about patches, there's always so much hidden meaning in it. And it's all the subtleties and the themes, even down to the colors and the number of stars. All that it goes into it. So it's always a fun thing to design a patch and kind of pull in a little bit of each person in the crew into it.
And you work very closely with the artist that designed your patch, and every astronaut does, right?
We do, yep, yeah. So the JSC helps. We had a known
Yeah, I hate
artist.
you a little bit, Pace.
I'm not sure if I'm
Lost a
supposed to say his
little
name,
bit of
but basically did it pro bono for us. That helped out, which was super, super grateful for that. But you're exactly right. We would kind of have some ideas of like some themes, and then you kind of iterate on that with them. And the same thing. So there's the crew patch, and then I think Courtney mentioned earlier when they get to the space station, they'll be part of Expedition 68, which also has a patch, and then they will also be up there for Expedition 69. So they'll have usually have a vehicle patch and then a expedition patch.
Raja, full of so much exciting information here and insight into
Contra, I didn't
what
get all
it's
of
like
it myself.
to be a NASA astronaut and to fly this Crew Dragon, go up to the International Space Station. So we want to ask
A rainbow
another
Punisher
social question.
forlorn.
Send them all in: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube.
Okay.
And here's a question from @11B. Does the 2+ hours in the seats prior to launch go slowly, or is the level of activity such that time passes quickly?
What, he's taking
That's
a
good
nap?
question. So I would say
Oh, no, he's not.
It actually goes pretty quick because what they're actually doing, and you can see actually all of them are tapping away at screens there.
Mhm.
Even though the crew's not right now, they're waiting for the closeout crew
Telling
to
you, man,
finish up.
cookie
And
clicker.
the F9 team is doing most of the work. What they are doing is kind of walking through all the displays and we call it chair flying, going through the sequences and actually kind of talking through some off-nominal events as well. And so they're using all this as rehearsal time because now that's the actual day of, there's different things that will be specific to the weather in terms of what egress set you might go to. And we mentioned before, like what's the commander's job is kind of like the coach and talking about like, okay, if this happens, remember, and I don't know what their sequence is, but like, okay, Sultan, you're doing this, Andre, you're doing this, and you're kind of just walking through those and mentally talking through all of them. And then what Woody and Steve are probably doing on their iPads is going through the displays they're going to see for the different phases of the launch, the different stages. So they have basically a preview mode on there, and they can talk through, okay, at stage 1A, I'm going to make that call, this is what we're looking for, remember we're looking at the altitude tape. So they're basically
that was the last thing they did before they got into the craft,
all the phases, because once it happens, once the rocket lights,
it happens fast.
That's exactly, from the time it lights to orbit's like 8 to 9 minutes, so you can't it's too late to talk about it then. So you're using all this time to go through all those sequences and talk about, okay, what if we have to, what if the cage of a stage 2D abort, and what are we going to do, and all the different what ifs, because there's different decision paths in each of those procedures, and you're sort of walking through like, okay, if we go down this path, remember, here's the things to remember. So it's just one last training session, if you will.
Seems like a lot doing these mental reps and going through, but that really greases you.
Exactly, and that's why then it becomes just kind of muscle memory when you're actually in the moment then.
All right, we have another question. Joab MSM asks, what does an astronaut do for NASA while they are not in space?
I'm glad you asked that, because that's one of the things I try to harp on the most when I do public affairs events is most of our job is not flying in space. Of course, we all love to fly in space, but for example, Tom Marshburn, who was my pilot on Crew 3, he was in the office for 28 years and spent about a year and a half in space, but that's not much time compared to the 28 years in the office. So most of our job is all the development and engineering and science work for all the programs that are going on. So right now, Artemis is what we're all working on. So there's the SLS rocket, there's the Gateway lunar habitat, there's the HLS, which is the human landing system. That's the lunar lander.
That's what you're working on.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
There's the Orion capsule. So all of us are working on different programs, helping with
it's going to be in a couple of days,
development of them. And then we also have all kinds of other jobs just to keep the office going. So we have you saw Reed, who was the former chief of the office. Joe is now the chief, so that's a job. Right? You've got branch chiefs who are running all the different personnel in the office. So these are all those jobs we do when we're not flying in space, but we still maintain a currency. So you're doing a job, but you're still flying the T-38. You're still doing NBL runs, the neutral buoyancy, which is where we practice our spacewalks. You're still doing biology training, geology training. You're doing all these things, ISS training at a currency level. And then once you're assigned, you stop doing your technical job and work solely on preparing for the launch vehicle on that particular expedition on the space station.
And I know you've been busy too, because even in your time helping us with the broadcast, we're greatly appreciative of you being here. You've been busy, like you're on your laptop, finishing up some work and stuff. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be here for the broadcast.
I think that's why we all love our jobs.
Yeah.
It's fun.
All right, let's check in now and go back to Houston, Texas with Courtney Beasley. What's happening in Mission Control, Courtney?
Thanks, Daryl. The flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston are laser focused on the onboard systems of the space station, ensuring it is ready to receive Crew Dragon. They're also making sure all communication links between the station, Dragon, and the ground are working properly. The consensus to this point is that everything is proceeding right on track. Teams here in Mission Control Houston, the team in Hawthorne, and the astronauts aboard the space station will monitor the autonomous docking of the spacecraft tomorrow. They'll perform a series of leak checks, then work to open the hatches on the Dragon side and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch opening to take place about an hour and a half after docking. Once on board, the astronauts will be greeted by the space station crew and will then join in for welcoming remarks for the new crew members. From there on out, they will no longer be referred to as Crew-6, but rather as flight engineers of the International Space Station until their return back to Earth. Here in Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Chris Dobbins is now on console overseeing the team for launch. And that's it from Mission Control Houston for now, so I'll toss it back to the team in Florida. Daryl.
Back to you, Andy. Back to you, Ollie. Back to you, Andy. Back to you, Ollie.
And has been flying astronauts from American soil to the International Space Station for the last 2 years. Let's bring in NASA's Jasmine Hopkins again, who's with Kennedy Center Director Janet Petro and Deputy Director Kelvin Manning.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Janet Petrel, Kelvin Manning, always a pleasure to have you guys here. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Of course. So, Janet, I know that one of your catchphrases is embrace the challenge. So talk to us about how the workforce has done that here at Kennedy to return to human spaceflight in just the past few years.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I do like to say embrace the challenge, and I would tell you the Kennedy workforce has really embraced the challenge. You know, if I start with last year, we were celebrating our 60th anniversary. We ended the year with that very historic Artemis 1 mission, and we were established 60 years ago, all about the Apollo missions and going back to the moon.
Yeah,
so
the first
Artemis,
stage
we're going back to the moon more sustainable way.
That first stage might be brand
and here
new.
we
The
are,
capsule's
and
been
we are
reused
going
3
to
times
be
prior, Zach.
with our 6th SpaceX operational mission, Crew-6 tonight. So the whole transformation of the center from that just government-only focused center to what we are today. We have a very vibrant space ecosystem out here, multitude of commercial companies as well as our government programs working.
It's Endeavor,
so
Warhawk, yep.
we have embraced the challenge of transforming to be the 21st century spaceport.
Exactly. And Janet, I'm glad you used that word spaceport. Kelvin, question for you. It's no longer just NASA out here. We're working with a lot of our industry partners. So how is Kennedy supporting them?
Well, we're supporting them in many ways, Jasmine. It's interesting because we have a new vision statement, and our vision is that igniting exploration and discovery for all.
Kelvin.
And the mission is to provide continuous access to space from Earth's premier spaceport right here through creativity and innovation. So you see all that coming to fruition here through our vision, and it's the government, industry, as well as our international partners.
That is great. Kelvin, thank you so much for sharing that vision. And right now, Crew-6 is launching at the end of Black History Month. We know that Kennedy has been doing a lot to celebrate that as well as the agency. Can you both tell us about that?
Yeah, so we've had a number of events around. One of our employee resource groups is the Black Engineering Strategy Team, BEST. That's our African, but really all of our ERGs here really promote our core value of inclusion that we have here at NASA. We're so proud of all the ERGs. Numerous events throughout throughout the month of February celebrating that.
Exactly. Kelvin, would you like to add anything?
Oh, sure. So,
by the way, Kelvin's our champion for BEST.
Oh,
executive
fantastic.
champion.
Executive champion.
That's correct. And through diversity gives us innovation. You know, people with different backgrounds, different thoughts. We want to be inclusive, like Janet said, and through diversity, we get that innovation that helps us solve the agency's challenges. And we've got a lot in front of us to return to the moon and onto Mars.
Looks pretty clear, Ian.
One last question. Last year we had 57 launches from Cape Canaveral. This year we're slated to have over 90. What do you think of that fury of launches coming for us, Janet?
It really is amazing. You know, the year before last, it was 31, 57, 94. We're going to be well over 100 in a couple years. And
there you go, Frosty. Your insomnia will be rewarded.
Across the center requires the support for every single launch, whether it's on our property or if it's on the Space Force property. Together, Kelvin talked a little bit about those partnerships. We work together to make all those launches successful, whether it's commercial, whether it's a government launch, a national security mission. We all work together for that. So we're busy. You know, I thought we were really busy for Artemis.
Yeah, their mic's popping.
57 launches this year. We're even going to be more busy, if you will, supporting all those launches. But we are incredibly proud of what we have accomplished at the spaceport. Couldn't have imagined it 10 years ago that we would be at nearly 100 launches in the decade
Apollo.
from the last shuttle launch. So incredibly
there you go,
proud of
Tech.
the entire
Hell yeah.
Kennedy workforce.
Exactly. Busy is the right word. Kelvin, anything last to add?
Sure. The cool part is we have commercial partners out here that haven't launched yet. So we tell people we're just getting started. So it's very exciting.
Right. No, that is perfect.
You're a grown-ass man. You can stay up as long as you want to. Dude, I'm a grown-ass man. Guess what? Last night after the stream, I took a mixing bowl and I had cereal in it, all right? You're not supposed to have cereal in a mixing bowl. That's too much. But I had a big old mixing bowl full of cereal because I freaking can. Because I'm an adult and I can do what I want. And it's my house. This is my house, all right? This is my... I'm not even kidding about that. That's the best. That's the best part. This is my house. And if you don't like it, you can get the frick out.
well as the fueling of the rocket.
Sorry.
Leading up until that point, we
could stay up and watch this rocket launch if we want to.
There. They were
Boom!
helped by our closeout team. The umbilicals were attached,
Consequences in the morning?
provide breathing air and
What's that?
communications to the astronauts.
What kind?
They
Frosted
did their
Flakes, man.
suit leak checks. We saw them pressurized and then depressed. And then
Mhm.
the comms checks were
That's a good way to say
completed
that, Katra.
with the core, the crew operations resource engineer with SpaceX,
It
and
was
the launch
great.
director. And now we are standing by for those next big milestones. And in the meantime, we've been taking your questions from hashtag #AskNASA.
You eat the
All
cereal
over
with
social
chopsticks.
Media,
Wait,
YouTube,
what?
Twitch, Twitter, and
Twitch?
Facebook. And we've got a question.
What's Twitch? I don't know what that is.
For Raja. And from Twitch asks, how long will the crew stay on space station?
Well, it varies.
Which
but
one of you
generally
asked
the
that?
expeditions are about 4 to 6 months. It can change a little bit depending on the traffic flow. The space station is sort of like a giant bus terminal in the sky with vehicles coming and going. So yeah, Crew-6 planned about a 6-month stay. When I was up there, Mark Vanderhyde did a year-long mission. Then Frank Rubio, who's up there now, will also be about a year-long mission.
That's awesome, Pi.
The reason we're trying to go longer and learn more is as we go to the moon and Mars to stay, we really want to make sure that we understand the effects of the human body on long-duration space flights.
It was
Very
him.
Good.
Oh.
Another question. Mr. Beast from YouTube asks, what will they be working on during their 6-month stay on the ISS? Also, why will NASA's coverage of the mission switch to an audio-only feed after ascent?
Bro!
I can help out with the
no way!
With the audio-only feed, but you want to answer
no way!
What they're going to be working on?
Sure. So the big answer is science, and so the ISS is a national laboratory in the sky, and it's specifically we do research that can only be done in microgravity. You heard Dr. Kurt talk a little bit earlier about some things specific to their increment.
They don't know.
With, some tissue chip research. They're going to do some
that's
swabs
awesome.
on the outside of the space station, which is the first time we're going to have done that, to see if microbes from our human body, so we bring along as humans this whole, all this stuff that comes off of us, and one curiosity is from a planetary protection standpoint is whether we would be contaminating the outside of the space station and what implications that has for the moon and Mars.
But that's still funny.
They're going to be doing some more plant research, so I would say, we understand how to grow plants in space, but it takes a lot of crew time to do it.
Dude,
so
I wouldn't be
next step is how
surprised.
to do
I wouldn't
that,
be surprised if that was
with
Jimmy,
better, what we
guys.
call
Yeah,
regolith
I wouldn't be
simulants,
surprised,
which is
dude.
basically dirt, because you just can't have normal dirt in space; it floats away. So you need to figure out some way to have a root system, and so that's where kind of the research for plant technology is at right now. So they're going to be involved in all that, but all told, in a normal 6-month increment, they're probably going to do upwards of 300 different science experiments, which is just an incredible number, over 2 a day, and then all the work to support those science experiments.
That's an incredible amount of science that's going to be done.
If Mr.
Now,
Beast could
with regards
just
to the second part of that question, why?
If Mr. Beast could just, get more people interested in space, yeah, that'd be great. Okay, yeah.
That is correct. We are going to switch to audio only after the ascent portion of the flight, and that's because the length of the crew's transit to the station, which is 24.8 hours, we elected to maintain commentary on mission audio circuits during the lengthy period of non-activity and while the Dragon crew is asleep. So we are continuing coverage non-stop, and will resume NASA TV coverage on Monday night prior to the start of critical rendezvous operations.
And we will be cosming that dock here, along with other Falcon launches.
Allow you to hear the mission audio, that critical communication between the ground and Dragon.
Actually, Cosmo, yeah, no, sometimes astronauts barf. Yeah, that does happen. Some of them don't. Some of them get. It's called space adaptation syndrome. Oh yeah, you get seasick in space, and sometimes somebody blows chunks and then they're good. Sometimes it takes people a couple of weeks. Oh yeah, space adaptation syndrome sucks. It's like perpetual seasickness. It's terrible. It sounds horrible, actually.
Following the crewed test flight of Demo 2.
So you're not wrong, dude. You're actually not wrong.
To the space station.
Hey, Greg, what's up, man?
It will also be SpaceX's 8th crewed space flight overall, and that includes the private missions, Inspiration 4 and Axiom 1.
That'd be awesome, Aviator.
Which visited Raja while he was on board station. Today, our crew is flying on board Dragon Endeavour.
No. There's a toilet on board. There's a head on board, Sensei.
And it will be
yeah, there's a toilet on Dragon.
It's on a brand new Falcon 9 rocket.
It's up here.
Below it. We've had a great countdown so far.
That's right. You don't want to go into any hatcheries
on the weather, and it's just spectacular out there, both at the pad
6 months is
the
up.
corridor weather also looks great, according to our friends at JSC. So they're doing some final pad wind evaluations, and it's all coming
Letting
together.
the final weather balloons go.
Releasing some balloons, getting those final
I just
wind
said that.
data in the upper parts of the atmosphere, and so far everything's looking good. We're getting
you bought your first house, Greg?
now.
Dude!
SpaceX
keeping the bugs off
tank
us.
Isolation
Nice.
valves to equalize low flow pressure.
Okay, they're priming the launch escape system, I think. I think that's what I heard. Daryl was talking over.
SpaceX Dragon copies.
Greg, that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
So the reason they tell them so there's
You've been
nothing
there.
the crew's actually
It's not
doing.
going to
That's
feel
the
real
big
for a little
problem. They
while,
let the
but
crew know a lot of those
damn
valve
does it feel.
openings and closings,
It's
so you
awesome.
can actually
Even
hear it and feel it inside the vehicle. You
every
can
day I walk into the
hear
garage, I'm like,
the
dude,
funk
this
or
is
the
dope.
Clunk, and so it's good to know that's about to happen.
The late
so you
43?
just hear something
Whatever,
happening
it's
in your
yours. Who
vehicle
cares?
Without, otherwise, it'd be a bit discomforting to hear a big metal shank clunk without knowing if that's supposed to happen or not.
It's a good heads up by SpaceX to let the astronauts know what's coming. So with
A lot of
about
people
an
do
hour
high-buys.
to go until liftoff, things
This
are
is,
really going
Kennedy
to start
Space Center in
picking up,
Florida,
as you've
Sparky.
already noticed. We'll get close to the go/no-go pole.
6 meter
to
by 9
arm
meter
the launch
shed.
escape system, and then, of course, begin the propellant loading.
Hell yeah, man.
The crew poll
That's what I'm
for
talking
readiness
about.
happens at T-minus 60 minutes in just a few seconds. And then the Dragon poll for prop load.
That's about the size.
is
Dude,
at
it's a little bit.
T-minus
That's a tiny bit
55
smaller than
minutes.
my garage, dude.
From there, at T-minus 45 minutes, there will be an internal mission control Hawthorne poll, and then the launch director's poll for propellant loading. And then when we get to about T-minus 40 minutes,
Dragon
the crew
SpaceX,
access arm will
you are
retract.
go for section 5 of 4.100. When ready, report go for launch.
Okay, here we go. Yo, it's Alex with the freaking
Every
raid.
copy, we're picking me up from 5.1 of 4.100.
You're just in
That's
time.
the
Well, you're not just in
procedure
time.
we
There's
were
an
talking
hour.
about earlier, so they're still
You're a little
in
early,
that,
guys.
And then there's different sections like we
We
described.
got about an hour
This
till the
particular
Crew-6
section
launch here.
is preparation for LES arming, or the
Yep.
launch escape system
They're gonna-
arming.
they're gonna arm
And
the launch
so what
escape
they're doing
system.
inside the capsule now is one launch.
So that's how far'd you get? Did you get to Minmus, dude? Evan's like, be back in an hour. Well, fine. You're just gonna miss out on all the fun then. Almost left the atmosphere. You guys know my buddy Alex. He's been in on KSP2 lately, but the guy is a monster RimWorld streamer. Very good, very good. But that Kerbal though, Kerbal 2 is pretty good, man. Right? I'm just here so I don't get fined. That's fair. We made it to Minimus and back safely and got my first 2 successful docks in Kerbal, and that felt so good. Had dozens of bugs to do it though. Yeah. It's going to take some time to get those stomped out, but the potential is there, my dude. He is a monster. Yeah, guys. Consider going over and give Etal a follow. He's a good dude. Thanks for the raid, man. So we're watching Crew-6. That's a live shot of Falcon 9. It's got 4 souls on board. Going up to the ISS. We're 58 minutes out. They are basically starting step 4.100, which basically starting launch operations here. So we're going to see them prime the launch escape system so they can get away from the rocket quickly if something goes wrong, and then they're going to fuel the rocket right after that, and then once the fueling is done, we send it.
NASA and SpaceX's 6th rotational flight of astronauts and 1 cosmonaut.
Anyway,
to
that's
the
out. Thanks for the raid,
International
my
Space
brother.
Station.
Appreciate
We are
it.
T-minus 58 minutes and counting until liftoff. And with us today is NASA astronaut Raja Chari, the commander from Crew 3. Thanks so much for being
no
here.
problem, Daryl. And you just heard Steve Bowen say they're go for launch, which is a kind of a cool time for definitely some fist bumps
Here we go.
inside the capsule at that point. That's the crew saying we are go for the next few steps. So go for propellant loading,
good
LES
excited.
arming,
Very
go
excited
for
for
launch.
future KSP2 for
So
sure.
that's that is their
Yeah.
vote, and you heard them say they're ready.
Colonies.
Good stuff
That's
inside the capsule. Liftoff time is still holding.
Wait, Alex, you're not going to be like...
Discovery.
You're not going to
drive
go
up.
Cassandra on the Kerbal colonies, are you? You're not going to do that. Hey, Evan, what's up, man? You're going to go Randy on those colonies, right? They're Kerbals, okay? Sorry, that joke sucked. Okay, it's funny to me. Evan, thanks for the sub, man.
Go at throttle up.
Half of Etel's viewers are just like, okay. All right. See you later, man. Yoshi, what's up, man? 10-month resub. Yeah, but they have organs to harvest. What?
SpaceX helped the astronauts into their suits.
Sorry, Frosty.
Historic crew quarters, suit
Randy,
up
if anything. You did say that.
Then the crew walked out on the same path that every NASA astronaut has done since Apollo 7, waving to family and friends and loved ones.
Such a dork.
As well as the cameras that were there to document their
How do you
journey.
think they get Mystery
After
Goo?
getting
Mystery
inside
Goo
the
is
Teslas,
Kerbals.
New ones, colored black. They joined a caravan led by Center Security on a 20-minute ride to the launch complex, 39A. And following their arrival at the pad, you see them doing the rocket recline, looking up at the rocket.
That's kind of
Then
dope.
they went up the tower and walked across this crew access arm, leading them to their spacecraft, making the duck, getting in the hatch, and climbing
They're making
inside
ducks?
Dragon Endeavour. Then they got strapped
Of course
in
it's
with the
Tesla's
help of
hooch.
the closeout crew. And now we
They
are
have blacked
watching
out
them
Teslas.
live
It's actually
while
kind
they
of cool.
await liftoff. And we're here at the host desk at the Kennedy Space Center. Raj and I have been
Ducks
counting
are
it
free.
down as we went along, and he's
Right.
been giving us great insight into the whole
Why would they
process
bring a duck into
of
space?
getting ready to launch on a mission. It's been really good.
It's been very exciting to
Science?
be here and to get to see a rocket launch from the outside. So looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Your
he
first
launched
time,
them.
as a matter of fact, and
Yep.
so we're interested on hearing
Lost
your
them the last
reaction
one.
after that. But at this time,
What happened
we
to
are
the Black Shark
expanding our
headphones?
coverage and would like to welcome
These are
in
Black Shark
SpaceX
headphones.
and NASA
Black Shark Mark
commentators
II.
joining us live from Hawthorne, California. Welcome to you both.
All right, thank you, Daryl, and hello to all of our viewers.
Gary?
I'm Gary Jordan with NASA Communications.
Jesse?
And I'm Jesse Anderson, a production engineering manager here at SpaceX. Gary and I are joining you today from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and it's definitely been a very
Duck
busy
season.
evening so far. As we continue the countdown to liftoff, we'd like to
Discovery,
welcome you
go
to
and drop 'em.
SpaceX
Sorry, you
Mission
give this up to
Control
Frosty.
in Hawthorne.
Thank you.
This is where our teams are staffed around the clock to monitor Dragon and the mission overall. On console or headset in Mission Control are 6 key positions. The mission director is in charge of the room and tasked with making real-time decisions to ensure mission
Dude,
success.
that control room is
The person that you may
very
hear
sleek.
may have heard talking to the astronauts is the crew operations and resources engineer, who you'll hear us refer to as the core throughout the broadcast.
They're going to the ISS,
And
Har.
the 4 additional team members are focused on vehicle systems, including avionics, navigation and control, software, propulsion, life support, and communication with ground support teams. Now, apart from mission control, our Falcon 9 team is currently located in firing room 4 in the Launch Control Center
Jersey
at
is
Kennedy
that?
Space Center in Florida. With less than an hour until launch, they are settling
Hey,
in
Joe
for
Acaba's
final
over there.
checkouts,
That was an astronaut
propellant
in the
loading,
blue.
and for launch.
That's right, and NASA has its own team members in Mission Control in Houston, Texas, where they've been preparing the space station for Dragon's arrival, and recently gave their go for launch, saying that
no.
the station itself is ready to receive the new crew. Upon liftoff, today's ride to the space station will take about 25 hours, with Dragon flying autonomously the entire way. And just like an autopilot on a commercial aircraft, the crew always has the ability to take manual control of the spacecraft if necessary.
Yeah, that's right, Joe Simba. He replaced
Now
Reed.
at T-minus 53 minutes and
2030 is up.
38 seconds
They
to
moved
go,
it.
we are looking good for an on-time liftoff. And our very own incredible Kate Tice has been monitoring the progress of the countdown. How's it going, Kate?
What up, Kate?
Thanks, Jesse. I'm Kate Tice, SpaceX Quality Systems Engineering Manager. And for those that have just recently tuned in, we had a smooth countdown so far today. The Crew-6
They can,
astronauts
Smunk, yeah.
completed ingress at T-minus 2 hours and 23 minutes. And since then, the
It does have a
teams
bathroom. Yep,
completed
yep.
the required comm checks, suit leak checks, and side hatch closure,
I can talk more
closure,
when
as
Kate's
well
done.
as its associated leak check. As for Falcon 9, our 2-stage reusable rocket,
It's
final
because I'm a
propulsion
nerd,
checkouts of
Wayland.
first and
Duh.
second stages of the engine began a few
Because
minutes
I'm a
ago
freaking
in
nerd,
preparation
man.
for
I
propellant
love this
loading.
stuff.
Now that involves testing and cycling the valves and engine pneumatics for pressurization. At T-minus 45 minutes, the team will report their
I think
readiness
manual
for
control means hit the
prop load
abort
with
button,
a
Smuck,
final
but I could be
electronic
wrong.
go, no-go poll. But before we can start loading propellant on the Falcon 9, we have a few tasks to perform. First, we need to retract
Hey,
the
Sim.
crew access
What's up,
arm
dude?
away from the Dragon capsule to its launch position. That will happen between T-minus 44 minutes and T-minus 42 minutes. Then, with that crew arm out of the way, the launch escape system will be armed. Once those two
Started
events
getting
are
any
complete,
KSP?
Dragon
Oh,
will be
Sim, if
ready
you need
for
any help,
Falcon
dude, just hit
propellant
me up.
loading. Now we'll also verify.
I played enough
with the
KSP
launch
for
weather
pretty much
officer
everybody
that
here in
all the
chat,
weather
like
meets all the
combined.
constraints.
Yeah,
That
you need help,
includes
man.
items such as
I
wind
got you.
speed, as well as lightning and precipitation. However, for tonight, we expect
I think he's playing
acceptable weather
Cookie
conditions
Clickerly.
for launch,
That's
both
Andre
at surface
Fediev. I think he's playing
level,
Cookie
at surface level and upper altitude.
Oh, you gotta give to the
As
sub.
we reported earlier, the possibility of violation for all of those criteria
I
is
got into
only
Stable 4 for the
5%.
first time last night, and thank you.
Pretty good for Cape Canaveral. Looking good there. As for
Wicked,
the range,
man.
currently clear for launch from historic pad 39A. Worldwide network of ground stations and the tracking and data relay satellites, or TDRS, as you hear it called out on the nets, those are ready to support Dragon as it heads into orbit. Today, we have an instantaneous launch window at 1:45 a.m. Eastern. Once we begin propellant loading, there is an opportunity to change that
It's not
to
Adderall,
zero.
it's coffee,
The timing
dude.
for Dragon to
Lots of
rendezvous with the
coffee.
ISS is incredibly precise down to the exact
Lots
second.
of coffee,
So
man.
therefore, we only get one chance to go to space today. But
Got a coffee
good
machine
news,
right there.
At T minus
Not even
51
kidding.
minutes and 5 seconds, we are good for launch. Good to go.
Like, you guys ever see that episode of Futurama where Fry has, like, the unlimited amount of cups of coffee? Yeah, that's me. Yeah. What is this launch? Crew-6 launch. 6 rotational crew for the Dragon. In fact, there they are. They're going out to the. They're going up to the ISS. It's going to take about a day to get up there. Waylem. Okay, so like for real, in terms of this, dude, I know all this stuff because I've been following spaceflight and I've been casting it here on Twitch with permission from these guys to for about a decade, man. I'm doing this for a long time, so you pick up a lot of stuff over time. Here's the crew that's flying on board, though. But yeah, that's how I know it. And I love space, dude. I got a bad problem. Space is a very bad addiction.
Program in
It's really,
applied
I just
ocean
think it's really
science and
freaking cool,
engineering
man.
at MIT and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. In July 2000, Bowen became the first submarine officer selected as an astronaut by NASA. This will be Bowen's 4th trip into space
35,
as
is
a
it even
veteran
possible?
of 3 space shuttle
Gonna need
missions.
a lot of training,
STS-126 in 2008.
Gotta be smart, man. They only take the best of the best.
STS-132 in
But
2010,
with enough persistence,
and
you'll get there. I mean, no promises,
STS-133
right?
in 2011. Bowen has logged more than 40 days in space, including
Oh, nice,
47
Loose Bowels.
hours,
There you
18
go.
minutes during 7 spacewalks. As the mission
got
commander, he'll
this.
be responsible for all phases of flight aboard Dragon, from launch to re-entry.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Warren
There are worse
Woody
addictions.
Hoberg is
Fuck,
from
yeah, you ain't
Pittsburgh,
wrong.
Pennsylvania. He earned a bachelor's degree in aeronautics and astronautics from MIT and a doctorate in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of California, Berkeley.
Oh.
He is also a commercial pilot with instrument, single-engine, and multi-engine ratings. The mission will be Hoberg's first flight since his selection as an astronaut in 2017.
Oh.
As pilot, he will be responsible for spacecraft systems and performance on Dragon.
Sultan Al Niyadi will be making his first trip into space, representing
Well,
the Mohammed bin Rashid
I made
Space
my bed
Center
today,
of the
Woody.
United Arab Emirates. Aboard Dragon, he'll serve as a mission specialist, working to monitor the spacecraft during the dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight. He spent time in the UAE military prior to becoming one of the first 2 individuals selected by his country when they started their space program just a few short years ago in 2017. Al Niyadi will be the first UAE astronaut to fly on a commercial spacecraft.
Cool.
Andrei Fedyaev will be making his first trip to space and will
Fedyaev.
also serve as a mission specialist monitoring the spacecraft during the dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight. He was selected as a cosmonaut in 2012 and will be the second cosmonaut to fly aboard a SpaceX Dragon. Each of these crew members will be a part of Expedition 68 upon their arrival to the International Space Station. Now let's head back over to Kate for another status update on the countdown. How's it going, Kate?
Jesse
Thanks,
put another
Jesse. It's
syllable in
now
there.
T minus 48 minutes and 5 seconds. The SpaceX launch teams are finishing final
They
review
gotta
of
flex all
data
their degrees
from
on us,
checkouts
too.
of Falcon 9 that have occurred over the last hour.
Dude, the commander of this mission, Stephen Bowen, yeah, the submariner, he's the only guy. He's flown on the shuttle 3 times. Now, a lot of people flew the shuttle 3 times. But he's the only guy to fly on the 2 back-to-back shuttle missions, meaning come down, land on a shuttle, get off, get onto another shuttle, and go. He flew on STS-132 and 133 back-to-back. He's the only guy to do it, which is pretty rad. That's really cool. I love my shuttle. Love my shuttle stuff, man. Yeah, that's some serious, like, Chad tier stuff. He's just commanding this mission. Whatever.
Earlier, you saw the vehicle assembly building.
Expedition 68, 68th expedition to the ISS,
the Falcon
Zelda, over
and
20
Dragon
years.
launch team, as well as key NASA launch members, are in the Launch Control Center.
That's right, somebody had to replace Tim Copra, who was in a bicycle accident. Yep, he's just like, yeah, I'll go back, whatever.
Screen. That is fire
132 and 133,
and they have
Smuck.
a view looking straight toward pad 39A. Now, there also on your screen on the right-hand side, you can see the Dragon capsule. That crew access arm is still in the service position. Inside the capsule there are 4 crew members.
So yeah, Stephen Bowen flew on the shuttle on 3 ISS assembly flights, 27, 32, and 33. 127, 132, and 133. Yeah, I watched him launch on the shuttle on TV a lot back in the day. I'm a fan of Stephen Bowen. He's from my neck of the woods. He's from Cohasset, Massachusetts. So, hey, Steve, the other guy got hurt. You want to fly back into space? Yeah, just launch me again, guy. It'll be fine. Whatever. Is there coffee up there? Yeah, I'll go. It's good. You sure? It's another shuttle? Yeah, it's fine. All right. Just tell me what you need me to do.
As around,
that's how it happened in my head.
As well as the air and sea space around the flight corridor. There at Kennedy Space Center, the weather conditions are predicted to be acceptable.
Let me go
launch,
take a leak.
As I mentioned before,
we'll be up.
only
we'll
a 5% chance of violating
That's Johnny
conditions,
Lester.
which include winds, both upper and launch altitudes, thick clouds, as well as the downrange landing zones. In the unlikely event that an abort is called for in that escape sequence, we have to make sure that the weather for those downrange landing zones is also acceptable.
Absolutely.
But everything is looking good.
So, a couple people, I always get asked this every time there's a crew mission. It gets asked without fail. So I'll go over it. So the last thing that the second to last thing that they did before getting in the spaceship was take a piss. There's a bathroom down here at the base of the pad. They took a piss, and then they got on the phone, made a last phone call, got in the craft. Now they're good. Now, it's going to take 24 hours to get up to the ISS. There's a toilet on board Dragon. It's actually above the door, and there is a privacy curtain, right? So you pull the privacy curtain over, do your thing. Okay, I know the next question coming. The next question coming, how does the toilet work? Very, very light vacuum cleaner. Yeah. So we'll just air that out. Yeah, vacuum cleaner. It's just not a very powerful one, but enough to get it away. They don't have toilet paper up there, and they damn sure don't have any. They don't have 3 seashells either. Not that they know how to use them, but yeah, that's how it works.
Through the operation, operator shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will board the launch out sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off, relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. Launch control, you may proceed with arming
That's
the launch.
still fun.
The crew arm for movement.
Proceeding with crew arm movement.
Okay, here we go. Arm retraction. No, yeah, Apollo didn't have that. They brought a bunch of Ziploc bags with them, and that went about as well as you think it did.
All right, as you just heard there, that final go for launch as well as for propellant load coming from the launch director or LD. So all good news there. We are still go for space tonight. As of right now, the crew access arm is being prepared to be moved out of the way. So to clear room for the Falcon 9 to lift off.
They didn't have the extra weight for the toilet. It's either have a toilet and not have enough fuel to go home. Which one do you want?
And there's that call out for that retraction beginning. Let's go back over to Daryl to follow that live at KSC.
All right, thank you, Kate. Appreciate it. The countdown continuing to tick.
Why do they sit there for so long? Well, they got to do leak checks on the suit. They have to do radio checks, and they have to retract the crew access arm. The next thing they have to do is arm the launch escape system on Dragon, and then they got to fuel the vehicle up. That's why there's a little bit of a wait here. But the biggest reason is that you go slow. Go slow. Take your time. Take your time. Do not rush it. You rush something like this, something blows up. Not in the way that you want it. It's very easy. It's very easy to make a mistake here. You don't want to make any mistakes.
Heightened right now, yeah.
Good, Super.
So you're definitely.
That's nice, Forge.
We actually did talk through. I do remember talking to them as we talked earlier about how you're going to go through different scenarios and timelines. And one thing is, if there is a emergency egress button in the capsule, but one of the things, the big difference is now that the arm is swung back, is you definitely want to make sure the arm has swung back towards you in the event of an egress. That makes sense, because you don't want to step out into nothing. Because at this point, the LES is not hot, but the arm has retracted
the arm would
away.
have to come
the arm
back.
has to swing back. Yes, and there's 2 rates, so the arm moves away at a slow rate, but in the event of an emergency egress, it swings back at a pretty quick rate, rightfully so, because you want to get out quickly. That's one of the things they're probably talking through. Is like, hey, don't forget, first person out the door, make sure to look down first. That's a big first step. If it hasn't swung back into place.
Great insight there, Raja, on the crew access arm. I didn't know that about it being able to return so quickly, but it makes great sense from a safety perspective. And so now, coming up, we expect to hear a call.
A bidet in space? I don't think that would work how you think it works. That would be horrible.
Yep, and so the crew at this point, in preparation for that, will be putting the visors down. They should have already done all those steps. They'll verify that.
I don't want that at all.
Once they get the go, then they will arm the LES and get confirmation
Damn,
that it is
Jim.
armed. We talked before about the hatch closed state, so that's also in this phase. That's the way you actually know it's armed is you see the flight computer state change. So it's a command you send, put it into the armed state, and then you know it's happened when you'll hear sounds, but that's the official way you know it's actually there.
That's terrible. You guys
really
are
the purpose
terrible.
of the LES and the launch escape system is it's both an automated and a manual system. So there's the vehicle is monitoring a bunch of parameters, and so one of the reasons they have to do a poll for arming is all the operators on the ground are checking that there's no parameter out of limits that would trigger an escape inadvertently. So you don't want to turn on the system only to have it immediately fire the capsule off. So the first thing they're doing is making sure all the parameters are stable. The
Sorry,
is good.
I don't know what to
tell
you.
There's no noisy signals.
Oh, geez,
in the
look at
data
that tower in the way.
inadvertently trigger it, and then you arm the system. And then once it's armed, there's the automated abort, and then there's also a manual abort. So I don't know that you can see it in the camera views we have, but there's a handle that sits between Woody and Steve that you can reach. You rotate and pull.
Smug, stop.
Manually initiate an abort. And so just very similar to an ejection seat where you pull the handle.
Time retraction complete.
Okay. Crew arm is retracted. All right.
That's a big
serious
responsibility for the commander and pilot if you had to pull that handle. I mean, you don't want to do that unless you're absolutely certain.
Exactly.
You gotta get out of there.
Exactly. And so there's the few cases, or if that's why earlier they did all those checks on the loops to make sure that the people on the ground that have the insight to the status of the F9 and the Dragon have the ability to talk to the crew. So if there's a failure of the automated system, that someone could tell the crew to manual initiate, or there may be some scenarios where the crew may notice something first and manually initiate.
In just a few seconds, we're going to hear Dragon to ground and that announcement for go for section 7.
Dragon, SpaceX, you are go for Section 6. Close visors and arm launch escape system.
Here we go.
Okay, Section 6. Right.
All right, Section 6 is in work.
So what they're going to do is they're going to...
I think it used to be 7, though.
It is, yeah. So it's a great sign.
It was never 7.
We talked about before.
SpaceX Dragon visors are closed.
Constantly learning and making changes to procedures.
Right.
It was never
Earlier
7.
tonight, we saw a lot of work happening in parallel for the first time.
Better than Section 8. Yeah, we don't want that
So
section.
we had a lot of margin left over. And there you can see the white room.
It's a T-handle that you have to pull and twist. It's on the dashboard of Dragon. Between the pilot and the commander.
Dragon arming and launch escape system.
Okay, so that's Steve telling them that they're
SpaceX copies.
Initiating the command. Like we mentioned, they'll do it. Actually, you can hear this. You can definitely hear this and feel it in the vehicle.
Of course, Allie.
There's some valves that are opening that are to the Super Dracos, which are the engines that would fire to initiate an abort, and those valves are safed until this point. So this command is essentially unsafing those valves, and you can very definitely hear and feel that inside the capsule.
Those Super Draco engines you mentioned, Raja, capable of moving Dragon.
So what they're doing is they're activating the LES. What the launch escape system does is basically an ejector seat for the capsule. Now, don't get me wrong. They don't have ejector seats. They don't shoot the people out of the capsule. The whole capsule is the ejector seat. The launch escape system is designed to basically escape a launch that's gone bad. So if something goes south from here down, those little nacelles on Dragon will fire. There's little rocket engines in there, and it'll fire, and it'll move Dragon away from the from the trunk, the second stage, and the first stage if Falcon 9, something does go wrong. It'll push it away. See that? If you can see that little nacelle on the side of Dragon right there, there's 4 of them, 2 on each side like this, and they both have two Super Dracos in them. Those Super Draco engines are hypergolic pressure-fed rocket engines. So basically, inside of Dragon up there, there's helium tanks, and those helium tanks go to a liquid fuel and an oxidizer tank. They open the valves to the helium tanks, and inside of the liquid fuel and oxidizer tanks, there's fuel bladders, and it'll squeeze it, and it'll pressurize the system. And then there's a valve at the engine. If the launch escape system goes, the valve opens, and it'll feed the liquid fuel and oxidizer into the Super Dracos. And when the liquid fuel and oxidizer combine, they're a special type of chemical. When they combine, they'll explode, and they'll light the rocket engine. It's designed to be simple and get you away from the freaking rocket very quickly. Launch escape systems will pull like 8 Gs sustained for like 10 to 15 seconds. I mean, you'll feel it. It'll hurt, but you won't be dead either. So they're arming that because the next step after that, Section 7, is fueling up the rocket and getting Falcon 9 ready to go. The reason why they have the launch escape system armed, because fueling a rocket is one of the most dangerous things that you can do, save like maybe launching the thing. Fueling the rocket cools the rocket down. You're putting highly explosive commodities inside of it, changing the pressures inside of it, the temperatures. There's a lot of stuff changing all at once. It's going through what's called transients, and that's very dangerous because, yeah, something could go wrong. You don't want that to happen. So that's why the launch escape system is armed, and that's why inside of these nacelles right here, there's engines that are basically cracked, ready to go.
That and feel it inside the vehicle.
We are,
Different
Patrick.
valves
Yep.
Open and close. You can hear the sounds of fluid flowing. Feel some different vibrations, and so that's why they're calling those. That so the crew is aware of if something's nominal or off nominal. If you hear a sound without a call, that could make you worry. So that way you know, like, okay,
they're not
that's the
solid,
one that we
Historia.
expected
They're
to-
pressure-fed
that valve is supposed
hypergolic.
to open or supposed to close.
Monomethyl hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide.
Propellant load has started.
There's little stuff like that, Croft, absolutely. Okay, prop load has started on Falcon
there we
9.
have the call that propellant load has begun. A big milestone as we count
That's
down
right, Nick.
to liftoff. Now T-minus 34 minutes and counting.
Oh, hi, Mason. What's new with you?
Today we'll begin the next 6-month rotation mission to the International Space Station. The launch escape system is armed, which happened just
That's right,
before we
Reboot.
began the loading
What's
the
the fuel
propellant of the
capacity?
Falcon 9.
I think it's about 1 million gallons, Huzzah.
Meanwhile, the Dragon capsule was loaded
Million
with
gallons
its
of liquid fuel and
propellants
oxidizer?
about a
I
week
think
and
it's a
half
million.
ago, just a few miles down the road.
Look
at
at how
the
clean
facility
Falcon is, man.
SpaceX
It looks
calls
weird.
Dragonland.
It's not
In order
methane,
to fly,
RP1.
Dragon needs a
Haryama.
fuel and an oxidizer. For the fuel, SpaceX uses monomethyl hydrazine, or MMH, and nitrogen tetroxide, or NTO, for oxidizer, and together, these propellants feed those Draco engines that maneuver Dragon on orbit, as well as the 8 Super Draco engines that
Today I
would power
learned.
the launch escape system in an abort scenario.
Have you been to JPL? I've never
And
been
again,
to
now that the
JPL.
fueling
No,
for
I've
Falcon
been
9
to
started, that means the 8
Maxer
Super
Sim,
Draco
which is in
engines
Pasadena.
inside Crew Dragon are
But I've never been
ready,
to JPL.
if
No. How
needed,
about you?
to launch the capsule away from the Falcon 9 rocket in an instant, should there be any kind of emergency associated with the rocket or the pad.
Yeah, new booster,
Of
booster
course,
1078.
NASA and SpaceX trains extensively for exactly that
Nice,
type
home.
of contingency.
You interned at JPL is a magical
So now
place.
let's head
you
over
haven't,
to
I would love to tour it
SpaceX
someday with the
commentator Kate
kids.
Tice at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne for an operations update. Kate.
Sim, I mean,
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah,
can
exactly right. We're
ask around
continuing
if
to
you
count
want.
down the final minutes.
There's the one
Everything's
stipulation, though. I
still
might have to
looking
go
good
with
for
you.
Falcon 9 and Dragon, with the teams reporting no major issues at this time.
I
Now,
know
with
people.
the launch escape system armed and Falcon 9 propellant loading underway, we are heading for an on-time launch just under 34 minutes from now. As we saw earlier, or rather heard, Falcon 9 propellant load began at T-minus 35 minutes. Daryl did a great job of explaining the propellants on Dragon. Let's talk a little bit about the propellants on Falcon 9. Slightly different. The first and second stages of Falcon 9 are each loaded with 2 liquid propellants. One is fuel loaded into a tank at the bottom of the stage, the other an oxidizer loaded into a tank at the top of the stage. The fuel that we use to power the Merlin engines is a refined kerosene, referred to as RP1 or rocket propellant 1. The oxidizer loaded on each stage is a densified liquid oxygen, or LOX. Densified meaning that it's kept much colder than typical for launch vehicles, therefore it takes up less volume, which allows for us to put more of that oxidizer into the first and second stages. To ignite the fuel and the oxidizer in the Merlin rocket engine, we use the ignition fluids of triethyl aluminum and triethyl boron, also called TTEB. Now, when TTEB comes into contact with oxygen, it burns, giving off a green-colored flame. Once we have the flame going, we add a little bit of that kerosene fuel into the Merlin chamber, and the engine ramps up to full power. Now, actually, you might see that green flash just as the second stage engine ignites following stage separation. Now, topping off helium into pressure vessels on both stages also underway. This is used to pressurize the tanks in flight as propellant is pulled out by the Merlin turbo pumps.
Those are called
You can
ullage
think of
tanks.
this similar to when you're drinking out of a plastic water bottle. You have to put some air back into the bottle in order to keep it from crumpling. So that's exactly what we're doing with that helium.
It's called tank ullage in rocket
Onboard the
science.
spacecraft,
That's
the
super
astronauts
important.
are
You don't want
monitoring
it to
the systems
implode.
while propellants are loaded into the Falcon 9 below them. The crew's training in the simulator here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, actually includes playback of sounds recorded in Dragon capsules during recent flights. So even though today is the first day they're hearing it live, they are prepared for these new sounds. Now the range continues to report no problems.
Stage 1 cryo-helium loading has started.
They are go to support launch. Weather also continues to look great. Currently, winds from the west-southwest at 9 miles per hour. Great conditions. We only have a 5% probability of violation for those constraints, so all in all, looking good. As I mentioned earlier, today we have an instantaneous launch time. So at this point, if we hear a hold for any reason, we'll have to stand down and target our backup launch opportunity, which is tomorrow, just under 24 hours from tonight's planned launch.
RP1's very inefficient, but it's very energetic.
30 minutes
Get more efficiency out of it.
Seconds, let's turn it over to Jesse and Gary for
can blow
an
up more of the
we'll see
hydrocarbon
after liftoff.
Thanks, Kate. For Crew-6, the astronauts' flight to station will take about 25 hours.
Now, as we wait for that T0 mark in just under 30 minutes, the ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure that both the Dragon and the Falcon 9 are ready for launch. You're looking at a live view of our teams at the Cape as they prepare for liftoff. Now, as we wait for that launch clock to hit 0, we wanted to give you an overview of what the ascent portion of the mission is going to look like.
Things can only get better.
Once we hit T0 and a successful launch occurs, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic launch pad 39A and make their ascent.
At about 50 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will
Another one's coming back down in a week,
period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, or what we typically refer to as
max
Q.
I've been listening to it every day before stream.
Once we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic.
Get in the Warthog.
Now, once we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our 9 Merlin engines again. From there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that will happen in rapid succession.
First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut off in preparation for stage separation,
that's a cool picture.
Which is our second event.
Damn, dude.
This is where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing, as a second stage continues its journey with the third event, SES-1, or second stage engine start number 1, where the MVAC engine lights up and propels the second stage along with our Crew-6 astronauts into orbit.
As Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back down to Earth.
Supersonic retro propulsion.
That's where 3 of the M1D engines will reignite and then shut down again.
Best part.
This helps to slow the stage down in preparation for entry.
Yeah, you weren't ready for the thing yet, were you? But you got it.
While that first stage is heading back to Earth, the second stage will cut off its 1 Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation.
Boom.
Once this happens, we'll wait for a confirmation of a good orbital insertion.
About 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. The landing burn is just a single engine burn, but it's powerful enough to bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship at about 9.5 minutes into the mission.
While Falcon 9 first stage is landing, Dragon is preparing to separate from the second stage.
That's cool.
At about 3 minutes after the second stage gets into orbit, we should have a great view of Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from the second stage.
That's the variable
Once Dragon is
for
a short
dynamic
distance
pressure
away,
SWK.
it'll begin checking out its Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure Dragon continues to increase separation distance from that second stage. It's worth noting that these are not the Super Draco engines that would be used during an abort scenario.
But they both use the same propellant, which is actually cool. The RCS and the launch escape system use the same prop. They're connected to the same fuel tanks.
It will take roughly 4 minutes for the nose cone hooks to unlatch and open, exposing its guidance navigation controls that will help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station.
And lastly, once the nose cone is deployed, the remaining Draco thrusters on the forward bulkhead will be checked.
SWK.
From there, over the next 25 hours, Dragon will be on its approach and rendezvous phases, undergoing a number of phasing burns as it makes its way to the station. And all of that will be coming up soon. But for now, let's check back in with Courtney in Mission Control Houston. Courtney.
Thanks, Gary. The flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston are laser focused on the onboard systems of the space station, ensuring it is ready to receive Crew Dragon. They're also making sure all communication links between the station, Dragon, and the ground are working properly. The consensus to this point is that everything is proceeding right on track. The team here in Mission Control Houston, the team in Hawthorne, and the astronauts aboard the space station will monitor the autonomous docking of the Dragon spacecraft tomorrow. They'll perform a series of leak checks, then work to open the hatches on both the Dragon side and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter.
Hey, that guy's playing Galaga.
To take place about an hour and a half after docking. And once on board, the astronauts will be greeted by the space station crew and will then join in for welcoming remarks for the new crew members. From there on out, they will no longer be referred to as Crew-6, but rather as flight engineers of the International Space Station until their return back to Earth. Here in Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Chris Dobbins is on console overseeing the team for launch. And that'll do it from here in Mission Control Houston, so I'll toss it back over to our team in Florida. Daryl, how's it looking?
Thank you very much, Courtney. And we're out here at the Kennedy Space Center. Folks are gathering on the lawn now, getting ready for this launch. And
it can go quick.
Beautiful
Salute. It has 2 modes. It has 2 gears, so it can go faster. It can go slow.
Looking forward to seeing my first launch and watching another turtle go to space.
Yeah, we're going to watch the launch. We're going to watch you.
That's cool, Pi.
See your reaction. Well, if you're just joining us, we are T-minus 24 minutes and counting now until the 6th astronaut rotation mission to the International Space Station under NASA's Commercial Crew Program. Commander Stephen Bowen,
President usually does
pilot Woody Hoberg, and mission specialist Sultan.
Freaking Kennedy wanted to put mission control in Boston. He wanted to put it at the Draper Lab in MIT. They even started building it, and then they didn't. Then it was all of a sudden in Texas because Boston, we have a problem. That sounds fine.
As expected, counting down to that liftoff at 1:45 and 3 seconds.
Sounds good.
A.M. Eastern Time.
Yep, and we heard the call from the Corps that the Stage 2 cryo-helium load had started, and like they described out
What's
at
up, man?
Hawthorne,
Good morning.
so far what we've loaded is the gas to pressurize the tanks. Around probably about 3-ish minutes from now, we'll actually start the gas itself. So, like they were describing, you need pressure to move the gas.
Ark was telling me that already.
The LOX itself. So
I don't know what.
Right now
that's a thing.
They are loading that helium that pressurizes the tanks, and then the next thing will be the fuel and then the oxidizer.
Those inert gases, key.
Fix it yourself, you bum.
Especially the LOX.
What?
This mission is the continuation of rotational crew flights to the International Space Station from U.S. soil on private rockets and spacecraft, and it would have been possible without the success of course, NASA SpaceX Demo 2, that test flight, now 2.5 years ago. Of course, it was the safe delivery and return of Crews 1 and 2 that got the operational flights rolling. There you can see inside
Tater.
the Dragon.
You can see their visors are down and will stay down now since the LES is armed, and you can see they're also not writing or doing anything more at this point with the LES armed.
Hands off.
Armed, you just have to wait until they're done with that, the prop loading.
Cali Kush. Yep. What's up, my brother?
And you can see now evidence that that liquid oxygen is flowing into that first stage as it super chills the outer skin of the rocket, and then it condenses the Florida humid air into a little bit of a cloud there.
You may have SMAT pack, but you know what I have? I have SMAT key. You know what it does? It's a really great way to remove paint off your car because you pack too close to me.
Side, the commander of Crew 6 is Captain Stephen Bowen. He hails from Cohasset, Massachusetts. He's married with 3 children. He holds the title of first U.S. Navy submarine officer to be selected as a mission specialist by NASA. Captain Bowen is also a veteran of NASA space flights, including space shuttle flights on STS-126, 132, and 133.
And Steve's a veteran spacewalker and just a great veteran to have around the office, and great commander to have for 3 rookies. He's just, and I think what we've learned about submarines is they're a lot like a space station. Kayla, who's also a submarine, likes to say that both things are, putting people where people aren't meant to be, and a lot of the systems and ways you have to work together are very similar.
And you need good people working together in those tight quarters. Sitting next to Stephen is pilot Warren Woody Hoberg. The 37-year-old is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He studied aeronautics and astronautics from MIT before getting a doctorate in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of California, Berkeley. During grad school, Hoberg worked as an EMT with the Yosemite Search and Rescue. I've seen pictures of him on a rope scaling Half Dome. Crew 6 will be Hoberg's first flight since NASA selected him to be an astronaut in 2017. He is one sharp fellow, but also a great guy.
Yeah, and also a turtle. So proud to see him going up there as yet another member of our, and super excited. Woody, like you said,
pouring
just
out of the things on the bottom,
brilliant. But also
it's the sound suppressor.
Sound, his time
that's
working
water
as
right there.
Basically
that's just
rescuing
priming
people
the system.
from ridiculous
Make sure there's
places.
water in the pipes. They
I mean,
spray the pad down
we're not
with water
talking
to
run of the
protect
mill
it
like
and the rocket.
off a ski slope. We're talking like off of rock faces and cliffs and just some
TE
crazy
vent
stuff. And doing that and
so okay, this is a TE chill right there. So inside of this structural component that's next to Falcon 9, that structural component is called the strongback. It's holding Falcon 9 in place. Falcon 9 can't stand up by itself like this unless it's fully fueled. So there is fuel lines for the second stage that go through the strongback. What you saw there was them chilling down those lines. They're basically purging out the line with oxygen right now. They're purging out the line, and they want to make sure it's full of oxygen and not full of anything else. The reason why the line was empty in the first place is because, well, the transporter erector here is not part of the pad infrastructure. They actually build the rocket on it and roll it into a hangar that's that way, right? So you obviously don't want fuel in that. So they have to vent down the line here. And when liquid oxygen starts coming out of the vent line right here, that means the line is basically primed and good to go to fill the second stage up. Simultaneously, at about T-minus 30 seconds, you're going to see it do that again. What they're going to do is they're going to start pumping nitrogen up the line to get all the oxygen out of there. Well, why? Well, you don't want fuel. You don't want fuel in anything but the rocket when the rocket starts to fly. You want it, if there is fuel, you want it not near this. So they'll purge out the TE. But this was the initial chill down here to make sure that the line is thermally conditioned and basically full of nothing but liquid oxygen, because they want to make sure when they fill up the second stage that you don't have anything but liquid oxygen in the liquid oxygen tank and liquid fuel in the liquid fuel tank. Makes sense, right?
He's a Roscosmos cosmonaut, and he will be working to monitor the spacecraft during the dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight.
Hey, Tran, what's up, dude?
He will be a flight engineer for Expedition 68.
Sound suppression?
Considering the partnership with cosmonauts riding on Dragons and U.S. astronauts riding on Soyuz, so great to see that continuing. And
liquid oxygen's coming out of the purge pipe. See those trickles coming out there?
And happy
They're going to close it here in a second.
42. What a way to celebrate.
Line's chilled down. She's good to go. That's liquid oxygen coming out.
Expedition 68
so you should see that thing cap in a moment
here. The International Space
Are we launching Starlinks or what? Yeah. No.
At this moment, Raja, what's the crew feeling?
I think it's hoping that everything continues. You've trained so long for this. You obviously don't want to get what's called go fever, when meaning you're going to ignore a problem, but you're just kind of just hoping that there's not any problems that pop up at this point. And most of it's honestly out of your control, but you have complete trust in the team.
Jim, there was a time where I did stuff like this in Kerbal.
The reason we've trained so long and trained with
built my own launch pads, built my own VAB.
Loops is, if there are any issues,
it's not
you
easy.
can hear it in their voices. You've worked with them, you know them. Complete confidence in the JSC and
how did they keep it from boiling before
MCCX,
launch? Well, they got to thermally chill it down, Biff, and then keep it at pressure.
To actually getting to execute what you've trained so long to do.
It makes sense. So much work and so much effort over the years has gone in to get to this point. You want to keep going.
Yep. Yeah, and it's and I think right now just the final. My guess is what they're talking through is so again on those displays, they're probably looking forward a few events and talking through those. And so specifically, they are probably talking through the different launch abort phases. So you'll hear once they actually lift off, you'll hear Stephen calling 1A,
right,
1B, 2A. Those are the different launch abort stages. And what they're probably talking through right now is the timing of that, what things they're looking for on the displays, and just again sort of.
I don't know why they haven't closed
the
line.
Happens,
it must not be thermally
really
conditioned yet.
So you just kind of running through things.
LOX is definitely coming out of it.
Again. The other thing there.
There it goes.
Start of stage 2 LOX load.
Stage 2 LOX load. All right. We're good to go. You should start seeing some condensation happening up here around the NASA
you heard the
side.
call there, so things still progressing well. And so the crew has a timeline of these events. So they're also, that's another way they can kind of QC if things are proceeding, maybe if the fuel is taking longer or slower to slow, so they're kind of comparing where they're sitting on the clock versus those calls, and gives them a sense of how things are going.
I think the pads are just as interesting as the rocket.
Direct telemetry in the Dragon capsule that tells you all the subsystems in the F9 rocket. You're relying on the timing and some cues and listening to these calls to know what's going on with the rocket itself. Once it launches, you have telemetry on the F9 engines, the status of the throttling command. So he talked about out at Hawthorne, the max Q event and the throttle down. You can see that. You can feel it. And actually, that was probably what I thought as one of the coolest things about our launch was that we could feel and hear the throttle down before we saw it in the telemetry.
15 minutes,
for all the automation and all the coolness of electronics, I thought it was amazing and very awesome.
Dude, but I gotta
the person is still
be careful
could
about
still
who
beat
we
the
raid
machine.
with this many people.
How about that?
But so that's kind of what since they don't have that insight to the F9 rocket, they're relying on the calls and the timing as they are sitting here now and just making sure everything's on track.
Critical communications to the astronauts so they know exactly what's going on, as Raja mentioned.
KSP
if you're
tonight?
outside and getting ready to watch this launch, you can
Stabby, we'll be back with KSP in less than 12 hours after this, dude. And 2 more Falcon 9s.
146.940
and that.
megahertz. And on the UHF radio frequency, 444.925 megahertz, FM mode.
Breaker 19, this is Rubber Ducky. We have you on the down low going to the ISS, over.
So the next thing you should be, as we get closer to 10 minutes, they're going to make sure the launch displays are set up. And the reason they're going to do that is because once the launch happens, you have the ability to, all the displays are touchscreen, so you can change them and move them, but you don't want to be doing that during launch. And so there's a check in there to make sure you have all the views you want. Generally, what I'm guessing they'll do is they'll scroll on the procedure to where they expect to, so they don't have to scroll while they're under G's. They'll make sure that the mission specialists have the views they need. You can see Andre's actually reaching up there right now, so they'll kind of check to make sure that their line of sight is not obstructed.
10-4. Copy, son of gun, pile, monkey nuts.
One more check of probably the volume control of their seats, that everyone can hear each
what
other.
Maybe
maybe give it a few clicks to account for the fact that it's going to get a little louder after launch.
All right, let's get another update from SpaceX and check in with Kate Tice.
Thanks, Daryl. We are T-minus 13 minutes and 47 seconds from launch. Everything's still looking good for tonight's Falcon 9 launch for Dragon Crew-6. If you've been following along, you know that Falcon 9 began propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. Loading of the RP-1 fuel on the second stage is complete. That finished around T-minus 20 minutes. Fuel loading on the first stage continues. It's approximately 75%.
Well, at least I have chicken.
And will finish around T-minus 6 minutes. Densified liquid oxygen loading is underway on both the first and second stages. They are looking about 80% full on the first stage and just under 10% on the second stage. That will wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes and T-minus 2 minutes, respectively.
Stick to the plan, chums.
Controllers,
13
what we
minutes.
call TVC wiggles, those are coming up. That's basically when we use those thrust vector controllers to slightly move each engine nozzle.
What's
That's what
densified
allows
locks
Falcon
means?
9 to
What does it
steer
mean?
itself during ascent.
It's
Dragon
super
mission
chilled,
director and
Kickney,
team
to the point where it's
reporting
almost
no
like a
major
snow
issues
cone
at this
in there.
time. Communication checkouts are complete. The crew access arm is retracted.
So, Kick, think about it like this. SpaceX is using densified liquid oxygen. Densified liquid oxygen is densified locks to rockets is like what forced induction is to a car. What does a supercharger do on a car? What does a turbo do? What does nitrous do? Those three systems right there are basically designed to get more oxygen inside of that combustion chamber. The more oxygen you can get inside of that combustion chamber, the more fuel you can get in there, the bigger the freaking boom you can make, more power you can make. It's the same with rockets. Now, but the rocket isn't trying to pull in the atmosphere, right? Like a car engine would be. It's not naturally aspirated. It's artificially aspirated with liquid. The reason why is because up in space, there's no atmosphere. You have to bring the oxygen with you, right? So they densify the heck out of that. That liquid oxygen is about as low as you can get before it turns to solid oxygen, before it'll freeze. It'll basically freeze. It'll turn to solid oxygen. I would say ice, but it's not ice. Ice is solid H2O. This is just solid O2. So it's about as cold as you can get, and it's for the same reasons that you'd put a supercharger on your car, because you want to go fast. All right? You want to go fast. You want to go faster. Felt like I was on a spaceship. Why isn't the tippy top more pointy? It's not pointy enough, A-Trend. It has to be more pointy.
Confirm their displays are ready. The crew will probably give a message thanking folks and just the thoughts on their mind.
Yes.
There's a lot of work and a lot of people that have worked a long time.
Someone's in Marvin's seat? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty special moment.
And when they lift off, they'll be 260 miles over southwest of New Zealand. And with that, we want to focus on the pad now as we proceed through the final stretch of the countdown. We'll turn it over to Gary and Kate at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, to take us through launch and ascent.
Dude, did you see Roger? Roger got the game face
Thanks,
on
Daryl.
when they started the count.
The energy is certainly starting to grow as we get closer and closer to T0. As you can see the vehicle there at pad 39A, that's Falcon 9
This is
with
live.
the Dragon capsule
404 not
positioned
found.
on
Yeah, no,
top.
it's live.
Now we're going to go through
Here,
a couple
I'll
of
fast
things,
forward just to be
including
sure.
some physical changes
I'll show
to the
you.
pad, but you will likely hear a number of callouts after.
See? Now it's live.
That are basically indicative of
It was a
the
couple
various
seconds
abort
pre-recorded.
modes that Dragon passes through during flight.
Dude, Starship pad back there. See it? See the tower? It's Starship. That's a Starship pad. That's pretty cool.
Now T-minus 10 minutes.
Dragon, SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
All right, here we go. Inside of 10.
SpaceX Dragon crew displays are configured for launch.
Okay. That guy's he's definitely a pilot. You hear that?
SpaceX copies. On behalf of our entire team at SpaceX, we are honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Endeavour today for its next trip to the International Space Station. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
All right. This is the 4th flight for that capsule.
Thank you very much for those kind words. We'd like to thank all the trainers, technicians, engineers, decision makers, and planners who have defined our mission ahead and trained us and given the faith in us to execute that mission. And Crew-6 is ready to launch.
All right. What's that cyborg? Yes, that is pointy enough. Yes. A-Trend, look at what cyborg link. That is pointy enough. This is from Kennedy.
Those words coming
crew
from
launches
the
are from
crew.
Kennedy Space Center, Brandon.
Crew-6 inside the Dragon right now, under 9 minutes from launch. Those final instructions meaning we are in terminal count. Falcon 9
Morning,
launch
Tars.
commit criteria is getting checked by the computers. And we're in the final stretch here, inside 10 minutes until liftoff.
Morning, failures.
Kate was mentioning a series of number and letter combinations
I got you.
that
If you don't
will
want to
hear
hear me
upon
blabber
ascent
over
once
this,
we
dude,
get to that
I got
point.
you. Links in
That'll
chat, buddy.
be those different abort modes that we'll be tracking throughout the ascent.
I see pointy.
There's an Alpha and Bravo on the first stage, and there's 2A through 2E on the second stage.
Those are the abort contingencies.
As we track it up the eastern seaboard.
Oh,
right now coming
pizza!
up on
Everyone
T-minus
should see a
8
rocket
minutes.
launch fly in real life.
The next
It's wild,
major
dude.
milestone that
like
we'll be
nothing
hearing
you've ever seen.
will be about the engine chill.
The seats are form-fitted, Wilman.
That's
Custom.
right.
That's why they can just sit there for a long
important
period
step
of time.
Of the
The seat
countdown.
is
That's basically
form-fitted to you.
when
They're
at
super
T-minus
comfortable.
7 minutes, we will open the pre-valves of the engines to allow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen into the Merlin turbopumps prior to the full flow of LOX that occurs during ignition. Now, that's important because at this point in time,
all right,
hardware
Gaming, I
is
got
at
you.
ambient
Some people
temperature.
hate it,
So
dude.
by
I don't know what
opening
to
the
tell you.
pre-valves and flowing a little bit of that super chilled, densified liquid oxygen helps
Nice username.
prepare the hardware for that colder temperature when
No,
the
SpaceX
full
keeps it.
flow
And the suit,
of
Bellum.
LOX occurs.
Even though the suit's custom tailored.
We should hear that call out in about 10 seconds.
Rocket Science, I saw the last Delta 4 from Vandy. Cool. T-minus 7 minutes.
Engine chill.
Okay. They've started thermal conditioning
There's
on the
that
9
call
Merlin
out
1Bs.
indicating that those pre-valves have been opened, and now there's a little bit of that super chilled liquid oxygen flowing through the hardware, basically chilling it out prior to liftoff.
They got to cool down the turbo pumps in the engines. If they try to,
in the meantime, we're
if they
tracking
flash freeze
fuel
those things, they'll
on the
break.
vehicle.
The
Stage
operating
2
temperature for the turbine
RP1,
machinery is
fuel on the
super
second
low.
Stage is complete. It's one
Big
of the
fucking Wookiee.
earlier tanks to be completely filled in the countdown.
Welcome to Mission Control. You
But
know
as we
what's throttle up.
continue to track the fuel loading, the next thing
Gotta chill.
will be the stage
Or it ain't
1
gonna be chill.
RP load.
Okay. RP1
That's coming up
first
here
stage
in
is
about
complete.
15 seconds. Later in the countdown, we'll be tracking the tanks of oxidizer being completely filled.
That RP1 load is now complete on the first stage. So at this point in time, all RP1 is now on Falcon 9, both for the first and second stages.
Inside of 6 minutes, guys.
LOX load continues, wrapping up at about T-minus 3 minutes for first stage and T-minus 2 minutes for the second stage. Coming up, we'll hear the call for Dragon to...
Dragon SpaceX, for awareness, we are seeing a T-tab load issue and are troubleshooting. We are currently still go, but have further evaluation before making a final decision. We'll get you a final read before T0.
Oh.
And SpaceX Dragon comes.
T-tab is triethyl aluminum and triethyl boring. T-tab is used to start the engines. If they're getting a bad reading, they'll go to start the engines and it'll cough. You don't want the rocket engine to cough. That's not a good idea. So hopefully it's a bad reading.
Terminal count.
And there's that call...
Tanks are pressurizing for strong back retrack.
Okay.
A lot of information coming through right now, just indicating that that Dragon is now on internal power, and now we are
Dragon's off the grid.
preparing to retract the strong back, which is
Could
the
be a
white
bad
structure
reading. They
there
got
to the right.
They got 4 minutes to figure it out, man.
See the clamps open just under those clamps, just under the Dragon trunk.
I don't
Those
think we
will begin
should
to
do that,
open,
Smug.
and the strong back will retract away from the vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see those clamps on the top of the structure there, just under the Dragon's.
Guys, I don't like running ads, to be honest with you, but I don't want people to see... I don't want ads randomly popping up during launch. So, Dinkelberg, thanks for reminding me. I'm just going to run a quick ad here, not because I want to, because I don't want this thing to be flying up into space and have like, oh, welcome to McDonald's. We're going to click it, and so people don't get pre-rolls during the launch, because that's annoying. I hate them so much, dude.
More when we hit that T0 mark.
And if you're still here, hi. This is weird.
That's right. At liftoff, Falcon 9 will, or excuse me, the TE will actually
whopper,
5 degrees to clear the way for Falcon 9.
Please no.
That TE is basically what has the umbilicals that attach to the vehicle that provide power, telemetry, and fluids prior to liftoff.
All right. I'm waiting for anything on that the T-tab.
Now coming up in 10 seconds, we'll be
got a Sorensen ad and a Subaru
stage
commercial.
1 liquid oxygen load being complete.
For what it's worth, cheese, crackers, and Geico. All right, at least Geico's ads are okay. Like, yeah, subs don't get ads, dudes. No, Stuntman, they don't. This is just a new one. This is Booster 1078, first flight. But Dragon Endeavor right
Dragon
there.
is in terminal count and on internal power.
This is its 4th time. All right. Everything is on internal power, meaning they cut it off from the grid. Onboard batteries are now powering all systems.
Minus 2 minutes,
This
30
is the
seconds.
LD on countdown 1. Hold, hold. We are standing down due to a T-tab ground issue.
As you just heard, we
Launch
have.
support has started.
As you just heard, we have a hold
stayed up
tonight,
for this, man.
due to the T-tab issue that I mentioned prior.
Oh, that
and
sucks.
The
Dragon SpaceX with that call from LD. You are go to step into 5.100 launch scrub.
Okay. Yep. Pack it in, guys. So, they have some problems with loading T-tab into the rocket. So, once again, if you don't know, T-tab is triethyl aluminum and triethyl boron. If that was Japanese to you, nando kore? If that was Japanese to you, that's it's pyrophoric igniter fluid. What is it? What it basically does is it starts the motors. They need the Merlin engines basically have a jet engine attached to the side, and the jet engine, instead of making thrust, right, it's turning pumps instead. Hence the name turbo pump, right? So, in order to get that thing started and get the jet engine to start jet engineing, right? What they need to do is they need to get it spinning first. It's a good trick. So they spray this pyrophoric igniter fluid in, and pyrophoric, that means basically once it finds oxygen, it's going to explode. It causes an extremely energetic reaction that basically spins the engine up really, really fast and gets it up to speed so they can turn the thing on and start pumping the fuel. If they can't load T-tab into the system, you can't start the engines. That's kind of important. That's why they were like, no. So, unfortunately, they've gone into I think it was 5.100 for abort contingencies.
So for those of you just joining at about
basically they're gonna get out
T minus 2.5 minutes. We unfortunately had a scrub due to a T-tab issue.
Yeah, that's it, Ducklington.
Systems.
Yeah,
So as Gary mentioned, we are in.
Dude, with this stuff, you don't want to leave it up to chance. If something is telling you, if the data is telling you that it's bad and you can confirm that it's bad, don't try to force it. You try to force it, someone's gonna die. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, that's thing one of spaceflight. Any Kerbal player knows that. Don't force the issue, or else Jeb's gonna find himself hitting the moon going 300 meters a second. You know what I'm talking about? Anyone? All right, so don't force the dang issue. So even an off-nominal reading from the engine starters, they were like, nah, screw that. We'll just figure it out, figure out what the problem is, fix it, and then launch tomorrow or something. Way easier that way.
At this point in time, the launch escape system is still armed.
How to untank? They'll basically vent it, and then they'll pump the fuel. They'll pump the fuel out, and they can vent the liquid oxygen overboard. Krasno. Yeah, Frosty, probably.
And Dragon, LD on countdown 1. At this time, our offloads are underway. Vehicle is safe and proceeding nominally with offload. Expecting about a 50-minute offload.
Yeah.
SpaceX Dragon copy.
No, it's a scrub.
50-minute offload.
They are not launching tonight.
So it will be a very methodical process.
It was Bobford, and he hit it at 500 meters a second. See, Vadim, you know what I'm talking about. Don't force the issue.
You can see some of that oxygen billowing off still. That'll be part of the sequence. They've also re-enabled auxiliary power to by umbilical to the Dragon as they work their way through the nominal scrub timeline.
Yeah, but the real scrubs are the real friends are the scrubs we met along the way, right? What was the cause of the scrub? They could not fill the igniter fluid into Falcon 9. Yes, it has igniter fluid. That's not a joke. Before you head out, could you check what I sent over in Discord? Could I check what you sent over in Discord? No. That's awesome, Pi. Those pictures are sweet.
And into space. They were tracking this issue and
What?
declared a scrub again at the 2-minute 30-second mark.
I'm the scrub daddy?
So we're going through a nominal
No, I ain't the scrub daddy. You're the scrub daddy.
With a 50-minute fuel offload.
Why did they say it was a ground issue? Isn't the T-tab held on the rocket
clamps
itself? You got to
have
load
been
it in somehow,
re-enabled
Bellum.
In this view right here. After we
I've never
offload
seen them.
prop,
I've never seen this
we'll
happen,
see the
Alex.
crew
Yeah.
access arm swing back to get the crew out. In the meantime, the launch escape system.
Yeah, Cherokee, we're done here.
Which enables the Super Dracos to fire should there be any anomaly with the Falcon 9 during the offload procedure. The crew does have the
Back to
ability
KSP2?
to
No. Bed. Back to bed after this. That sounds like a good
Right now, the ground teams are tracking no issues.
Oh, Adrian, why you raiding? Why you raiding me, man?
A nominal
Ah! Buongiorno. Why you raiding me, man? I'm about to log off, too. Adrian, grazie. Ciao. Come stai? Cavo, she scrubbed. They had problems with the starter fluid, and they scrubbed the launch. And now, yeah, buongiorno, consigliere. Hi from Italy. What's going on, Adrian viewers? How you guys doing? Smock, let's not think about that. That's bad juju. Buongiorno from Bologna. There you go. Right on. How you guys doing? Was Adrian watching the launch too? It was awesome meeting you live. There he is, my guy. What's up? How you doing? Dude, that was fun. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, Adrian, yes, yes. Oh, that's awesome. Faber, did you know you're Italian too? I didn't know that, dude. You never told me that. Now you got to stay another hour. Oh, Fim, don't do that to me. You're doing pretty good. Yeah, we're watching the launch. Did Adrian tell you guys what was good? That the igniter fluid went. No good.
For those who are just joining, as a reminder, we are in a scrub at just under 2 minutes.
You saw the photo with me and Adrian Zuki?
Launch.
Cool, huh?
The ground teams
that was awesome, dude. I didn't know Adrian was going to be there. It made me so happy.
With the T-TEB ignition fluid. And as a precaution, made a scrub for today's launch.
I don't know,
as we were
Jax.
counting down to T0. Now we're
So happy
working
you have
our
some
way
Italian friends.
through
There's a lot of Italians that watch this stream,
scrub
Faber.
Procedures, which include
We're everywhere,
offloading
dude.
the fuel and
We're
oxidizer that are loaded on the Falcon 9 right now.
We are everywhere.
You can
We're all
see
over the
we
place.
Made our way through the countdown to a strong back retract that has been put back
Thanks,
into
Faber.
place, and the clamps just under the trunk of Dragon are now in their configuration that they were prior to that part of the countdown.
You're doing fine until the
And
rocket
Kate, we're
stopped.
making
Yeah.
our way through
Yeah, I hear you,
offloading
Brett.
that, Falcon
Yeah, I
9.
know what you mean.
That's right. In total, that prop
Nice.
offload is
Oh, thank
expected
you.
to take 50 minutes, 50.
It was gonna go northeast,
So
MC, 51
unfortunately,
degree
at this
incline.
point in time, there's not a whole lot that the crew there can do except
Why not launch?
patiently
It's
wait.
just 4 Kerbals.
I could imagine that they might be a
Night,
little
Dave.
sad as of
See you, buddy.
Because otherwise they would be in space at this point, effectively. But right now, as you can see, they are just sitting back and relaxing as the Falcon 9 teams on the ground continue to keep them updated. As Gary said, this is a nominal scrub procedure.
New York
or
style, sure.
configuration.
Okay.
We have procedures listing out every step of this. So right now we are basically.
So the launch scrubbed because they had bad readings for the triethylaluminum triethylborane. Oh, there's main vent down on the first stage.
Discovery,
First stage. They had some trouble with the pyrophoric igniter fluid down there. And they scrubbed the launch. Like, the launch director immediately said, nah, screw this. Salute gifted us up to Adrian. There you go. There you go. Adrian, thanks for the raid, man. It was so fun, dude. That was such a good time. I gotta make my way back to Europe sooner rather than later. It was fun, dude. It was a good time. I gotta go to Italy, dude. I'm gonna go to Italy somehow, man. Should probably go there. Yeah, we'll see, W. We'll see what it is.
T-minus 35 minutes. We made our way quite a bit through the timeline, and those tanks were pretty full. So the ground teams estimated
big
a
vent down there
50-minute,
from Falcon 9.
50-minute offload of that fuel.
Hi from Poland,
In the meantime,
Yexamash.
the Crew-6
How you doing, buddy?
astronauts are in a passive state. They'll be tracking the fuel offloading process and listening to the communications from the ground
Why do they
teams, giving them status
make the suit
updates
white?
along the way.
Ohio, they can make it
But
any
we
color
are in
they
a
want.
nominal
White just looks
configuration.
cool.
In the meantime, they've taken the Dragon Falcon 9 off of internal power and re-enabled.
So SpaceX's suits are white because that's the kind of the color scheme. You know, you got to remember, SpaceX. This isn't necessarily all utilitarian. The suits are there. The suit helmets are there because they look freaking cool. It's not necessarily Spartan like NASA's stuff is, right? With that being said, NASA uses orange suits. The reason why they use orange suits is because if the crew has to bail out and they get it, like, find their way into the ocean or something, the orange suit is really easy to pick out. That's why their suits are parking cone orange, so they're easy to see. But yeah, SpaceX's suits they kind of went with an aesthetic thing. So, you know, it's white, gray, and black, like Falcon 9, right? Just remember, you met a future Starship astronaut, dude. Tim's awesome. I love hanging out with him. Allie, I'm pretty convinced Tim and I could hang out every day, and it would be fun. We'd have a good time. I mean, we're both freaking, like, dude, just space nerds, man. What do you want? What do you want to do? Tim is a good dude. I'd love to go hang with him some more, and Scott too, and pretty much everyone that was there. It's like, you're like, oh crap, I'm overseas, like I don't know anybody, and then you just realize that everybody there is a space nutcase like you, and it's not weird, you know. It's not weird, man. Flavie, Tim's a good dude. He's a good dude.
Up the elevators in the crew tower, down the crew access arm, and
they're all
progressing
good dudes.
into the capsule.
Flavie, it was
and
so
basically
fun hanging out with
doing a full
Yeah,
rehearsal
loose
of
bows.
launch day,
She's no
as
no
if
good.
it were real, but no propellant involved. So that's why it's called a dry dress rehearsal, because there was no propellant involved. So technically, this is very similar to what they would have done on Thursday in terms of simulating.
Yeah, SpaceX had a really rare scrub. This is the first crew launch, except for like Demo 2, that I remember scrubbing. Crew 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all went on the first try. Yeah, this one isn't gonna go though.
But everything continues to track nominally for this activity. Right now, for those that have recently...
You know what? I didn't ask him, Sally.
Had a hold called on the countdown at about T-minus 2.5 minutes. The crew had reported around T-minus 5 minutes, or excuse me, the ground teams had...
it's a 24-hour scrub,
Smuck? Reported around T-minus 5 minutes an issue with the T-TEB, which is the basically the stuff that we use to ignite the engines on the first stage. So out of an abundance of caution, the teams called that hold at T-minus 2.5 minutes, and then proceeded into nominal off detanking or basically unloading the vehicle with all of its
I may have
propellants.
muted it, Bone.
Given the fact that occurred at T-minus
I'm gonna shut up.
2.5 minutes, the majority of the propellants were already on the vehicle.
SpaceX with a propellant offload update.
SpaceX Dragon, go ahead.
Yep.
Offloads are proceeding nominally, anticipating another half hour until closeout.
Understand, looking about a half hour to close out. Copy. Thank you.
All right, so good news there coming from the ground teams,
talking about getting the
indicating that
props
we
out.
have about 30 minutes left of the propellant offloading. We heard Commander Steve Bowen sounding pretty unbothered by everything. Like I mentioned before, everything is written down in the procedure. They practiced this very similar egress procedure during Thursday night's dry dress rehearsal. So all in all, everything continuing nominally there for these next steps. As I mentioned before,
Yeah,
we
you don't
will
want fuel in the
eventually
rocket when you
crew
get out of
access
it,
arms swing
Ninja.
back
Bad
into
idea.
the service position, and we will have the pad teams re-enter the pad area and basically enable the astronauts to egress. I also mentioned earlier that our backup launch opportunity is about
Discovery,
the same
go at
time
throttle up.
tomorrow.
24
roughly
hours scrub,
24
guys.
hours after our initial T0.
Yeah, Nick, it'd probably be a good idea, right? All right, dudes.
Due to the fact that we were launching the crew that you see there on the right-hand side of your screen. They were headed to the International Space Station. As such, that is down to the very second in terms of catching up to the International Space Station when launching from Kennedy Space Center. So when it comes to crew launches, there's only one shot. And so therefore, due to that scrub that was called at T-minus 2.5
There is flexibility in the launch window, Smuck, but they go for instantaneous to optimize efficiency. It can change it, though, if they need to. All right.
That's right.
Guys,
Okay, and as you...
I'm going to post the link for the coverage, and I'm going to pack it in, dude. It's 2 in the morning. What caused the scrub? Problems with the T-tab apatoxin, the igniter for the engines. They hit something went off nominal with loading igniter fluid. So they said, nope. They said, nah, son. So, guys, I'm going to post the link for this in chat. If you, never seen that happening before. Hey, Meebs, sleep well? Thanks, buddy. Man, everybody's in here tonight. I appreciate everybody watching, guys. Thank you. I thought the igniter, I thought the igniter was preloaded. Yeah, I did too. I mean, sometimes, dude, they may have changed it, or, you know, I mean, I always said that T-Tab is in cartridges. It can be in cartridges, or you can preload it. I mean, maybe. Any more KSP tonight? I will be back in about 10 hours. So, guys, we have a 24-hour scrub for this. I'm posting the link for it in chat if you want to keep watching them do the egress procedures here. But here, check this out. Let's go over to next space flight here while we're waiting. So that's the attempt that got scrubbed here. We have a Falcon 9 Starlink teed up at 1:30 in the afternoon tomorrow. So that's about 12 hours from now, and that's about 13 hours from now. And then after that, 1:30, so 24 hours from now, we have that one. So we should have 3 Falcon 9s teed up. I'm going to be back here for KSP2. We'll cover this launch. We'll cover this launch. We'll play more KSP, and then we'll end on the Crew-6 note. Tomorrow's going to be a nice, long boy stream with hopefully 3 rocket launches. And hopefully they can get Crew-6 up and running. But, yeah, unfortunately, it ended in a scrub. So, I hope you guys enjoyed it. That was fun. Fun little launch coverage. That's what I do. I play KSP. We play KSP2, KSP. We come in here, we cover launches. This is what we do. Fun, isn't it? I hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope everybody had a good time. Let's see. Who's up? Okay, my buddy Sim is playing Kerbal. He was actually watching in here. We're giving him a raid, okay? We're going to go see what Simcopter's up to. Keep the space train going. Let's go see what Sim is doing. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. If you want to see more of it, I'll see you in about 10 hours. I stream 10 to 12 hours, 5 days a week. But Kerbal 2 is out, so we've been streaming a little bit more. We're gonna hit that raid over at Simcopter there. Put the links for that in chat. Go raid him, post those panels in his chat, and help him with Kerbal. He's new. He needs help. That's where I'm gonna go wind down, guys. We're gonna go see what Sim's up to. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? Have a good night. Or morning if you're in Europe. It's late. See you later. Thank you.